financial management and the presentation of budgets. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's an issue here. Let's proceed and take the budget statement from the Minister of Finance.
Yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I have listened to the application by the Member of Parliament for Tolon. I have also listened to the Leader of the House responding to the said application. The Leader of the House makes a general submission. The application was anchored on the rules of this House. A mandatory provision in Order 195, there's no may there. It reads, for the avoidance of doubt and at the risk of being repetitive, this is what it says. The budget statement and economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the Minister responsible for finance on behalf of and on the authority of the President and in the form the House may determine. Yes, wait, look at it. Mr. Speaker, wait, yes. So, yes, wait. Mr. Speaker, let you take it easy. Let you take it easy. Let you take it easy. This is law. Take it easy. Take it easy. Take it easy. So, Mr. Speaker, what is the reverse logic? Please, for the benefit of our young ones, for the benefits of the young ones, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this House is a house of procedure. This House is equally guided by its own rules and precedents. Wait a moment. For those who are in a hurry to shout in his agreement, if the law says may determine, is it also the case that in reverse logic, the House may decide not to determine any form? But no, wait. The law is that a budget statement must be presented. But we are saying again that as a House, we may have to determine which form. So, Mr. Speaker, the invitation by the minority, the deputy minority whip, is well founded. He is inviting us as a House to determine, are we going to allow him to make a statement or we are going to allow him to move a motion? Is it going to be in a form of a motion or in a form of a statement? This is a well-anchored application. Don't use your number to shout to intimidate him. He has made a solid argument. This House has not determined the form in which this item has to be taken. The deputy minority whip is inviting us to set the ground rules. The majority leader got up and referred to PFM Act to say what? He didn't quote the specific provision. The man has made an application under our own rules. You didn't attack him on the rules. You didn't say anything against his application on the rules. Mr. Speaker, as the minister is here, in which form are we going to listen to him? What is he going to make a statement? Or he is going to move a motion? Mr. Speaker, this house is being invited to determine this matter. You see, the Supreme Court has had an occasion to give a contextual interpretation where may is placed to mean shall. Yes, it is. no, come on. Mr. Speaker, even that argument aside, put that argument aside. There's no need for any interpretation of whether mayors should be sharp. The point is that the law provides that we should determine the form. The law says we should determine the form. In this house, there are ways to come here. You come to make a statement, you come to move a motion. What is the minister coming to do? It's for this house to determine. Is he going to move a motion in accordance with Article 179? Or he's coming to make a statement? And when he makes the statement, what happens? Is it going to be left with a chairman of a finance committee to now move that this house should debate the statement? Mr. Speaker, this is a solid application and he should be applauded for what he's done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I want to rule on this matter. I've heard enough. I think in terms of procedure, the right thing has been done. The order you quoted clearly states the statement of the estimates of revenue and expenditure of the government. It says what? The statement. And so what they are bringing to us is a statement. And when statements are admitted, they are presented as statements. Now, when you go to 1952, which you refer to, it says the budget statement and economic policy of the government shall be presented to the House by the minister responsible for finance on behalf of or on the authority of the president. That's first. Second, and in a form the House may determine. Honorable Minority Leader, you are not in a shouting battle. Please. This is the House. The only way the House can determine however you define form is when the statement is presented to you. The House cannot determine this matter outside the House. You can only determine it when you are truly sitting as a House. And this is the House. He's presenting the statement. If you decide that you want a form, you define form in any different manner as you are doing, then this is the time when it is presented, you take this opportunity to determine that form you want, different from the earlier forms that we've decided and been practicing. If this is what you want to do, please, the statement must first be presented to you. It has to be presented to the House. And if you may, you determine the form you want it to be presented. That can be part of the debate. But I'm not sure the definition you are putting on the word form. Form. Please go back to your lexicons. To determine the meaning of form. I think the right thing is being done. The statement was admitted. It's been properly captured on the order paper as programmed by the business committee, and the minister is here to present present the statement to the House. So the minister may do so. So honorable members, Honorable Minister, just a minute. Honorable members, at the commencement, yes.
Mr. Speaker, just to thank you for your guidance and the proper interpretation of 1952. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For the longest time until I became a Galamsey.
Honorable members, item 7, statements. The budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Minister for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, on the authority of His Excellency the President, President John Dramani Mahama, and pursuant to Article 179 of the Constitution and the other paper and the standing orders of the House, Order 1952, and today's order paper, item 7. Mr. Speaker, I present to you the budget statement and economic policy of government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, today marks a moment of great significance, and I have the singular honor to stand before this House to present, on behalf of His Excellency, President John Dramani Mahama, following his extraordinary mandate, the maiden budget of his new administration. Mr. Speaker, I'm deeply grateful to His Excellency the President for entrusting me with this responsibility. Respectfully, Mr. Speaker, I also submit to this House the following statutory report as required by law. The 2024 annual report on the petroleum funds, in line with Section 48 of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, as amended, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also submit the 2024 Energy Sector Levies Report, in accordance with Section 6 of the Energy Sector Levies Act 2015, Act 899. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the 2024 annual report on the collection and utilization of the African Import Union Levy in line with Section 7 of the African Union Import Levy Act 2017, Act 952. Right, Honorable Speaker, with this budget, I will also be seeking a review of the following act to support the policies of government aimed at stabilizing the economy and promoting inclusive growth. The first will be an amendment to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815. The second will be the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund Act 870. And the second will be an amendment to the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act 2018, Act 978. The Speaker, I will also be seeking amendment to the Energy Sector Levies Act 2015, Act 899. I will be seeking amendment to the Ghana Cocoa Board Act 1984, the PNDC Law 81 as amended. The Speaker, that's not all. I will also be seeking amendment to the earmark Funds Capping and Realignment Act 2017, Act 947, the Ghana Procurement Authority Act 2003, Act 663 as amended in Act 914. Speaker, I'll be seeking amendment to the Ghana Education Trust Fund Act 2000, Act 581. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I'll also be seeking amendment to the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018, Act 982, and incorporating into a comprehensive public financial management act. Mr. Speaker, I forgot to add that I will also be seeking amendment to the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915. So, Speaker, we remain committed to the pursuit of our 24-hour economic policy of stimulating economic growth and job creation. Right, Honorable Speaker, this policy will contribute to addressing Ghana's structural economic challenge by creating an integrated, efficient, and increasingly export-driven industrial economy that fulfills the utilization of our national resources, capital, and labor power. Right, Honorable Speaker, will be presenting the 24-hour economic policy to Parliament in due course. In this respect, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Act, the Ghana Investment Promotion Act, and other enabling legislations will be reviewed accordingly. Mr. Speaker, as part of the effort to stabilize our city through foreign exchange and gold reserve accumulation, I will also submit a bill to provide a legal framework for the establishment of the Ghana Gold Board for the consideration of this House. Mr. Speaker, this budget is indeed an abridged version of the 2025 budget statement and economic policy of government. I respectfully request the Hansard Department to capture the entire budget statement and economic policy of government for the year ending 31st December 2025. Mr. Speaker, standing here evokes a sense of nostalgia as I reflect on my journey in public service from my early days as a young parliamentarian in this House in the year 2009. Destiny has guided my path from a backbencher to a member of the Finance Committee, to a Deputy Minister of Finance, to ranking member of the Finance Committee, to Minority Leader, to Majority Leader briefly, and now, Mr. Speaker, as Minister responsible of Finance. Right, Honorable Speaker, the invaluable experience I gained in this chamber has shaped my perspective, sharpened my focus, and prepared me for the task at hand. I fully commit to supporting His Excellency the President to fix the economy of Ghana. I take this opportunity to extend my profound gratitude to the good people of Ejuma Kwenyane Siam, my constituents, and to you, Mr. Speaker, and members of this House across the aisle for your unwavering support throughout my years in this chamber. Mr. Speaker, this esteemed House is a century of rigorous debate, principled cooperation, and at times constructive disagreement, all in the pursuit of greater good of our beloved country. I look forward to working with you, Right Honorable Speaker, and my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to reset the Ghana's economy through sound policy and structural reforms that will propel our country forward. Mr. Speaker, there comes a time in a nation's history when fundamental challenges must be confronted, difficult choices must be made, and a new course must be set for the future. For Ghana, the defining moment is now. Mr. Speaker, President John Dramani Mahama made a commitment to reset Ghana for jobs, accountability, prosperity. Mr. Speaker, as captured in the NDC manifesto, in this regard, the theme of our budget is resetting the economy for Ghana we want. Right Honorable Speaker, the democratic principles we tirelessly fought for are being held. Our democracy has been consolidated with yet another peaceful transition of power. That notwithstanding, our youth face an uncertain future with growing unemployment and hopelessness. This suggests that the dividends of democracy, such as economic prosperity and social justice, remains elusive. Mr. Speaker, the choice before us as a country are clear. We can either continue on a path of self-destruction by not confronting the problems, or we can embark on a journey of fundamental reforms and transformation, one that resets our economic model, redefines our priorities, honors our social contract, and provide opportunity for all. Mr. Speaker, luckily, President Mahama has chosen the path of reform and transformation. He will fix the economy. He will restore hope and lead us to build the Ghana we want together. Right Honorable Speaker, this budget was preceded by the National Economic Dialogue on the theme Resetting Ghana, Building the Economy We Want Together on the 3rd and the 4th of March 2025. Through this consensus-building dialogue, the people demanded a decisive action, real solution to the severe challenges that plagued us as a country. Mr. Speaker, the 2025 budget is a culmination of the true aspirations, felt needs, genuine desires of the people of Ghana, expressed through the engagement with diverse stakeholders. As part of our broad consultation also, ahead of the budget, we recently engaged traders at major trading centers, including the Mokola market, to listen to their concerns, gauge their expectations, and elicit their input. Mr. Speaker, the extensive consultation revealed that the overriding concern among Ghanaian traders and business community remains price and exchange rate stability. Apart from eroding their working capital, exchange rate volatilities makes effective business planning impossible and increase the cost of doing business. This budget outlines far-reaching measures which will be implemented in close collaboration with the Central Bank, the Bank of Ghana, to effectively and efficiently manage the exchange rate and inflation. Mr. Speaker, we also engaged the youth of Ghana in a dialogue on social media as part of our new budget consultation. Mr. Speaker, during my engagement with the youth, it was revealed that 321 pharmacists who were employed since June 2023 have not received their salaries. We will take urgent steps to remedy this situation immediately. Right Honorable Speaker, this conversation was an eye-opening experience, one that strengthened my belief that the voices of the youth matter in designing policies that directly and indirectly impact their lives and future. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2016, I came to this chamber on behalf of the then Minister of Finance, the Honorable Seth Emmanuel Tepe, and led the passage of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 912, to deploy a robust public financial management system. Even though, Mr. Speaker, the Public Financial Management Act remains one of the best in the world, its poor implementation has rendered our public financial management systems weak, allowing for abuse and costly infraction. So, Speaker, President Mohammed's government is committed to the full implementation of this critical legislation. So, Speaker, accordingly, we will enforce the sanction regime, link contracting and public procurement to budgetary provisions in the medium-term expenditure framework, and seek parliamentary approval for all multi-year commitments as required by law. Mr. Speaker, we will comply with the public procurement process and link them to approved budget. We will also respect the limits of the appropriations as approved by Parliament. We will rationalize the management of the compensation of employees, including conducting headcounts across the country. Mr. Speaker, I now turn my attention or my focus to the state of the Ghanaian economy as at 31st December 2025. Right Honorable Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I now focus my attention on the state of the Ghanaian economy as at 31st December 2024. Mr. Speaker, hands on heart, we inherited an economy in deep crisis. Mr. Speaker, an economy hard hit with debt and beset by other fiscal challenges, such as large accumulation of MDRs, energy sector shortfalls, and financial sector payments. Mr. Speaker, recommitment control and reckless public spending have reversed the progress made in fiscal consolidation, even under the IMF program that commenced in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the gains made under the IMF-supported program that was to achieve through the painful sacrifice of domestic bondholders, external creditors, and taxpayers, the economy remains in distress. Right Honorable Speaker, key performance indicators to be assessed by the IMF staff in the upcoming fourth review of the program, scheduled for April 2025, such as the primary balance on commitment basis, inflation, social protection, and others, as at end 2024, are likely missed. Right Honorable Speaker, in addition, all structural benchmarks due by end December 2024 are also missed. Mr. Speaker, inflation worsened in the year 2024 from 23.2% in the year 2023 to 23.8% in 2024. Mr. Speaker, the 2024 end period inflation also exceeded the budget target of 15% by 8.8 percentage points and the IMF central target of 18% by 5.8 percentage points. Unfortunately, this has triggered a discussion with IMF under the monetary policy consultation clause. Right Honorable Speaker, the primary balance on commitment basis worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP in the year 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the primary balance on commitment basis target for 2024 was a surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, the previous government recorded a deficit of 3.9 percentage point of GDP. This presents a slippage of a whopping 4.4 percentage points. Right Honorable Speaker, at the end of December 2024, total central government arrests amounted to 67.5 billion Ghana cedis, representing 5.2% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, with the road sector recording an arrest of 21 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, when I assumed office on the 23rd of January 2025, my office was inundated with requests for payment for many contractors and suppliers. To ascertain the total arrests and outstanding payment for all MDAs, the Ministry of Finance decided to formally request all MDAs on the 28th of January 2028 to submit information on all arrests, and outstanding claims for validation. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance held a special hearing with the MDAs to validate the arrests that were submitted for payment. The response from the MDAs and the validation revealed that a staggering amount of 67.5 billion Ghana cedis is owed to government contractors and suppliers. Mr. Speaker, this consists of MDA's outstanding interim payment of invoices worth 49.2 billion and bank transfer advice at the Controller Accountant General worth 18.3 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion excludes 1.73 billion US owed to independent power producers. This 67 billion also excludes 68 billion Ghana cedis owned by Electricity Company of Ghana to contractors. Mr. Speaker, this 67 billion US also excludes the 32 billion owned by the Ghana Cocoa Board to contractors. And Mr. Speaker, this 67.5 billion also excludes the 5.75 billion owned by the Ghana Road Fund to various contractors. Right Honorable Speaker, the Bank of Ghana is also seeking an amount of 53 billion Ghana cedis as bailout to be able to address their negative equity challenge that they face. Mr. Speaker, as part of the measures to address these mounting accumulated arrests, we have commissioned an audit of these arrest payments and guarantee value for money before a penny will be paid. Mr. Speaker, before a penny will be paid, we'll commit to do that arrest. Right Honorable Speaker, in addition to the 67.5 billion cedis in arrests, the validation process also revealed that MDAs have awarded contract to the tune of a minimum 194 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount represents 16.5% of GDP as at the end of 2024, with the road sector again alone accounting for 100 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, most of these contractors and most of these contracts were awarded without commencement certificate and authorization. Mr. Speaker, this is in blatant violation of the Public Financial Management Act 921. Right Honorable Speaker, let me now update you on our debt service obligations. Mr. Speaker, apart from the huge arrests and commitment, our fiscal situation is further complicated by huge bullet debt service and constrained fiscal financing options. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the government's option to finance the budget is limited to only Treasury bill market following the debt restructuring program. Moreover, the forthcoming debt service of both domestic and Eurobond debt obligation will have profound implications for fiscal sustainability and balance of payment. Right Honorable Speaker, domestic debt service alone, programmed for the next 4 years, is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, simply put, the interest and principal payment that will be due for payment beginning now for the next 4 years is 150.3 billion Ghana cedis. This represents 11.6% of GDP in domestic debt service obligation alone. The Speaker, of this 150 billion US Ghana cedis, 73.3% of this 150 billion Ghana cedis is due for payment in the year 2027 and 2028. Right Honorable Speaker, 2027 alone, the domestic debt service that will be falling due will be 57.6 billion, and 2028 will be made to call upon to pay 52.5 billion Ghana cedis. So, Speaker, the debt service obligation of 2027 and 2028 are major harms. These harms are cancerous and pose significant risks to the economy of Ghana. But, Mr. Speaker, touch wood, we shall fix it. We shall fix it. Mr. Speaker, our debt service obligation of this financial year is equally burdensome with significant harms. February, we were called upon to pay 9.9 billion. July, we'll be paying 6.2 billion, and August, we'll be paying 10.1 billion, all this year. Right Honourable Speaker, the fiscal challenges are further compounded by the significant short-term treasury bill that we also inherited. So, Speaker, these obligations, totaling about 111.1 billion Ghana cedis, requires rollover week in, week out, placing additional pressure on cash flows and liquidity requirements. Mr. Speaker, beyond the domestic maturities, Ghana faces significant external debt service obligations for the next 4 years. In the next 4 years, we'll be made to call upon to pay $8.7 billion US dollars, representing 10.9% of GDP, with heavy concentration again in the year 2027 and 2028. Again, Mr. Speaker, 55% of this external debt service will be due in the year 2027 and 2028. Right Honourable Speaker, in the year 2027, we'll be made to pay $2.5 billion US dollars, and 2028, we'll have to again pay $2.4 billion US dollars. Right Honourable Speaker, it seems the debt restructuring undertaken by the previous administration was designed to make 2027 and 2028 debt repayment heavy, sadly. So, Speaker, I don't know how come we sat and allowed that design to happen. So, Speaker, that is cancerous, but I can assure you we will fix it. Mr. Speaker, in spite of all this upcoming domestic and external debt service obligation, no buffers were built to cushion this unprecedented debt service burden. Mr. Speaker, as of 7 January 2025, the debt service reserve account, the sinking fund in dollar, has a balance of $64,000 US dollars. Mr. Speaker, when we were leaving office, we left behind $319 million US dollars in that same account. Mr. Speaker, the debt service reserve CD account had an amount of 143 million Ghana cedis. Right Honourable Speaker, when we were leaving office, the balance was 430 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, I now move you to stalled project. Mr. Speaker, due to the bilateral creditors' debt restructuring that is ongoing, undertaken by previous administration, a staggering number of 55 projects have been halted. Mr. Speaker, this leaves a massive amount of 3 billion Ghana US dollars in undisbursed loans and about $300 million in outstanding interim payment certificates, IPCs. Some of these projects include the famous Ifeanyi Kwanta Hospital, the Kejetia Market Phase 2, the Bolgatanga Boko Palmakrom Road, and the Tema Aflawa Road project. Delayed payment and demobilization from site could result in cost overruns of over 1.1 billion US dollars. Right Honourable Speaker, the IMF-supported program imposed an annual disbursement ceiling of $250 million for all bilateral loans that are being restructured. This constraint means that it will take a minimum of 12 years to complete all of this stalled program. So, Speaker, unfortunately, as a result of the debt restructuring, all this stalled program, working with the IMF, will take a minimum of 12 years if we decide to go business as usual. We'll be engaging in the coming days to resolve this challenge. Speaker, I now take you to the famous energy sector fiscal risk. Mr. Speaker, the increase in energy sector financing shortfall is posing significant risk to the Ghanaian economy. In the year 2024, the Ministry of Finance supported the energy sector with payment of about 20.8 billion Ghana cedis. These resources could have been used for job creation and other development programs, like roads, schools, and hospitals, if the sector inefficiencies were resolved. Mr. Speaker, a recent exercise conducted by the Energy Sector Financing Modeling Team under the Energy Sector Recovery Program, ESRP, revealed that the business-as-usual energy sector financing shortfall has increased significantly to about 35 billion Ghana cedis for the year 2025 alone. even after spending in excess of 20 billion cedis in the year 2024. Right Honorable Speaker, more importantly, the shortfall for the period 2023 to 2026 has been estimated to be about 140 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount is 20 times more than the allocation for goods and service for all MDAs in the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, in addition, the energy sector shortfalls, which relate to current invoices that are largely unpaid legacy arrears due to the independent power producers. Mr. Speaker, the legacy arrears stood at $1.73 billion as at end 2024. Right Honorable Speaker, the cocoa sector, which has long been the backbone of the Ghanaian economy, is sadly on its knees owing to gross mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, the sector faces declining output and financing challenges characterized by unsustainable debt, rollover cocoa contract risk, and quasi-fiscal expenditures, including cocoa roads, which, Mr. Speaker, is a non-core function of the Ghana Cocoa Board. Right Honorable Speaker, cocoa production has dropped by nearly 50% over the past 3 years. In the year 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board was unable to supply 330,000 tons of cocoa to meet its contractual obligation. This sharply decline has affected the finances of Ghana Cocoa Board. This undersupply has been rolled over for subsequent years for the new administration to pay. Mr. Speaker, these 2023 to 2024 forward sales contracts, locked in at lower prices than the current market rates, have resulted in revenue losses of about $840 million for both Ghana Cocoa Board and the impoverished cocoa farmer. Right Honorable Speaker, the rollout cocoa contract has resulted in a loss of $495 million for the year 2025 alone. Mr. Speaker, these are the risks in relation to the market price differentials and, as a result, costs causing the smuggling that we see with Ghana Cocoa Board. Mr. Speaker, Cocoa Board outstanding debt amount to 32 billion Ghana cedis, of which 11.92 billion is due to be paid in the year 2025. Outstanding cocoa road contracts reached 21 billion Ghana cedis, approximately $1.3 billion in the year 2024. Of which only 4.4 billion has been accounted for in Cocoa Board's finances for the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, the financial sector still struggles even after spending 30.3 billion in the financial sector cleanup exercise by end 2024. This includes 26.9 billion Ghana cedis after spending this amount in the banking sector. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, the financial sector is still struggling, and the financial sector will require 10.45 billion Ghana cedis to address the financial sector legacy issues and emergent risk. In addition, Mr. Speaker, an amount of 2.2 billion Ghana cedis is required to fully capitalize the National Investment Bank and the Agricultural Development Bank of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I will also update the House on the fiscal performance for the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, the fiscal performance in the year 2024 was characterized by improved revenue collection, but with significant expenditure overruns. In addition, large arrests were accumulated over the period. Mr. Speaker, in summary, the provisional data shows the following. 1. Primary balance on commitment basis, the key fiscal anchor of the IMF program, worsened from a deficit of 0.2% of GDP at the end of 2023 to a deficit of 3.9% of GDP at the end of the year 2024. This is 4.4 percentage points worse than the target surplus of 0.5% of GDP. Sadly, Mr. Speaker. On cash basis, Mr. Speaker, the primary balance was a deficit of 1.2% of GDP against a target of 0.6% of GDP, representing a 100% deviation. Mr. Speaker, the overall fiscal balance on commitment basis for 2024 was a deficit of 7.9% of GDP against a target of 4.2% of GDP, while the overall fiscal balance on cash basis was a deficit of 5.2% of GDP against a target of 5.3% of GDP. Total revenue and grants amounted to 186.6 billion Ghana cedis, or 15.9% of GDP, 5.3% above the revised target of 177.2 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.4% of GDP. The performance was mainly driven by higher than programmed oil and gas receipts and higher non-oil tax revenue collection. Total expenditure on commitment basis, including discrepancies, amounted to 279.2 billion, or 23.7% of GDP. This is 27.1% above the budget provisions of the year 2024, Mr. Speaker. The primary balance on commitment basis, including discrepancies, amounted to 232.4 billion, or 19.8% of GDP. This is 35.3% above the target of 171.7 billion, or 16.8% of GDP. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, all expenditure lines exceeded their respective targets for the period, except for interest payments, goods and service, and other expenditures. Right Honorable Speaker, the discrepancies for the year 2024 being unclassified expenditure was 3.8 billion Ghana cedis as compared to 12.9 billion Ghana cedis in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, at the end of December 2024, provisional data indicate that gross central government and guaranteed debt was 726.7 billion from 610 billion in 2023. This represents 61.8% of GDP in 2024, compared to 68.7% in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, it is instructive to note that the debt to GDP ratio and the dollar component of our debt that has come down, that has reduced, is as a result of the 37% haircut on principal of Eurobond debt under the debt restructure. Mr. Speaker, it is important to know that. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, it is instructive to note that the debt to GDP that has reduced is as a result of the 37% haircut on principal and interest that were given to Eurobond bondholders. So, Speaker, you may recall that the government commenced the debt restructuring program in the year 2022 to restore debt sustainability and economic stability. As of now, the restructuring process is approximately 93% completed. The remaining 7% relate to debt of $2.7 billion owed to commercial creditors. We are committed to completing the remaining debt restructuring as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, real sector development in the year 2024. Right Honorable Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistical Service on the 10th of March 2025 shows that overall real GDP growth increased. So, Speaker, at the end of increased to 5.7% in the year 2024. So, Speaker, I take that again. So, Speaker, provisional 2024 GDP statistics published by the Ghana Statistical Service on the 10th of March 2025 show that overall GDP growth grew by 5.7% of GDP in the year 2025, compared to the growth rate of 3.1% recorded over the same period. Mr. Speaker, the key driver of this growth was largely coming from gold mine. Mr. Speaker, including Galamsey. Mr. Speaker, Galamsey growth cannot be sustainable. Mr. Speaker, non-oil GDP growth. Mr. Speaker, the non-oil GDP grew by 0.6% in the year 2024, compared with the growth rate of 3.6% recorded in 2023. Mr. Speaker, the gross international reserves increased to a stock position of $8.98 billion at the end of 2024 and was enough to cover 4 months of imports, exceeding the target of a floor of 3 months of import cover. At the end of 2024, the currency had depreciated by 19.2% against the US dollars, 17.8% against the British pound, Mr. Speaker, and it had depreciated by 13.7% against the euro. Mr. Speaker, Right Honourable Speaker, it is what it is. The state of our economy is troubling, but we will fix it. Mr. Speaker, touch wood, we will fix it. But Mr. Speaker, it will require some sacrifices, truthfulness, transparency, and discipline. We will take strong measures to confront the situation head-on. Mr. Speaker, the sacrifice must come from all stakeholders, beginning with the government. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency the President appreciates this and has led the charge by significantly downsizing his government from the Elephant 88 to the Umbrella 60. Mr. Speaker, he has also reduced the number of his government ministries from the Elephant 30 to the Umbrella 23. Mr. Speaker, as part of the contribution to the resetting agenda, organized labor has followed suit by working with government and employers association to agree on a modest 10% increase in base pay and minimum wage for the year 2025. Right Honourable Speaker, on behalf of His Excellency the President, I would like to express my profound gratitude to organized labor and employers. Mr. Speaker, ordinary Ghanaians have also sacrificed by enduring the negative impact of severe currency depreciation since 2022. Hyperinflation, high food inflation, principal and interest haircuts, soaring interest rates, among others. Mr. Speaker, it is now time for the people's representative, the members of Parliament, and the judiciary to also follow suit. I would like to call on all other stakeholders, including the business community, faith-based organizations, academia, and civil society to support this national call. So, Speaker, our immediate task is to reset our nation, to restore good governance, reduce the excruciating suffering of our people, and set our country on a trajectory of economic transformation. So, Speaker, our vision is to build a prosperous and a democratic state, anchored on the principles of freedom and justice, providing equal opportunities for all. So, Speaker, through this vision, we will work together to build the Ghana we want. Right Honourable Speaker, the resetting agenda will be anchored on the following. 1, restoring hope in our democracy, renewing trust in public officials, and helping every Ghanaian attain their full potential. Offering a trusted hand to the vulnerable, particularly women and youth, and creating a new Ghana for coming generations. And finally, stimulating demand by patronizing made-in-Ghana goods under the 24-hour economy. Mr. Speaker, today I came to this chamber with made-in-Ghana bag, signifying, Mr. Speaker, with made-in-Ghana bag, Mr. Speaker, I would like to first present, Mr. Speaker, they don't know that in Ghana we sew suit. Right, Honorable Speaker, I would like to first present the government's immediate and strong measures to address the current challenges we are confronted with, followed by the medium-term vision, policy objectives and targets. Right, Honorable Speaker, consistent with Section 14 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 911, the fiscal policy objectives of this government is to support the economic transformation agenda to ensure the macroeconomic stability of the country within the macroeconomic and fiscal framework. More specifically, the fiscal policy objectives of the government include the following: rationalizing government expenditure and eliminating wasteful expenditures, optimizing domestic revenue mobilization through broadening of tax base, increased non-tax revenue collection, adopting enhanced tax compliance measures, and modernizing the tax administration through digital technology. Mr. Speaker, we will also increase the share of domestic expenditure to spur economic growth and job creation. We'll be reducing public debt to sustainable levels and adopting prudent debt management practice to support debt sustainability. Reducing the fiscal deficit progressively in accordance with the amended Fiscal Responsibility Act to promote fiscal and debt sustainability. And Mr. Speaker, restoring confidence in the Ghana economy. Right, Honorable Speaker, our approach will be to foster economic growth, accelerate job creation, reduce inflation, and stabilize the cedi. To achieve this, it is crucial that we establish the macroeconomic stability and ensure debt sustainability. Mr. Speaker, we are confident that by prioritizing these fundamental elements, we can cultivate an environment where individuals can prosper and businesses can thrive in Ghana. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians through the recent National Economic Dialogue have expressed a clear desire for fiscal deficit and public debt to be reduced through cuts in government spending rather than through only tax measures. We wholeheartedly agree, Mr. Speaker. Going forward, we will tailor our expenditure to align with our fiscal realities. After all, whoever pays off their debt gets rich. Mr. Speaker, we are poised to implement a three-pronged approach to achieve our objective, beginning with this budget immediately. First will be to recalibrate the fiscal adjustment, and we believe that by prioritizing spending-led fiscal adjustment can initiate a positive cycle. Fiscal adjustment can initiate a positive cycle in a way that first, it will help lower inflation and curb depreciation of the cedi. Secondly, it will lessen government reliance on borrowing, which in turn will reduce the crowding out of private sector and lower interest rates. Lastly, this approach will ease the strain on monetary policy, allowing the central bank some greater flexibility to reduce monetary policy rates, ultimately resulting in lower bank and lending rates. Mr. Speaker, the second approach will be to deliver a shock therapy. Mr. Speaker, we are implementing a form of shock therapy to the economy by making significant spending cuts this year, thereby reducing the government financing needs and front-loading fiscal adjustment. This is the down payment for our policy credibility and credit worthiness. Right, Honorable Speaker, our third approach will be to restore fiscal responsibility. By moving forward, we will enhance public financial management by empowering ministers to effectively manage their budget on their own, ensuring strict compliance with the commencement certificate. Mr. Speaker, we'll be passing and enforcing a revised Fiscal Responsibility Act, and finally, we will enforce the sanction regime for non-compliance of the Public Financial Management Act. Mr. Speaker, in pursuit of the overarching macroeconomic objectives, the following macroeconomic targets have been set for the year 2025. Overall real GDP growth of at least 4% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, not less non-oil real GDP growth of at least 4.8% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, end period inflation rate of 11.9%. Mr. Speaker, primary balance on commitment basis of a surplus of 1.5% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, gross international reserves, including oil funds and encumbered assets, to cover not more than a minimum of 3 months of import. Mr. Speaker, to address inflation, government will implement a number of measures to complement the Bank of Ghana and monetary authorities. Mr. Speaker, the measures to stabilize the exchange rate include the following. We will be establishing the Ghana Gold Board to enhance the generation of accumulation of forex to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. The Bank of Ghana will continue to implement its FX forward auction to support the stability of the Ghana cedi. Government's strong fiscal consolidation through the reduction in public sector spending and the fiscal deficit will reduce the pressure on the exchange rate. Mr. Speaker, our import substitution drive under the 24-hour economy involving domestic production of key products originally imported will reduce imports and related FX requirements, boding well for FX stability. Right Honorable Speaker, we are addressing the inflation problems through a number of measures, including the following. First, specific interventions, including the Agriculture for Economic Transformational Agenda, is expected to increase food production and reduce food inflation. The government will implement policies that target items with large weight in the CPI basket, such as transportation and utility, to reduce their prices. Mr. Speaker, our aggressive fiscal consolidation drive aimed at reducing the fiscal deficit and borrowing will contribute significantly to reducing inflationary pressures. Right Honorable Speaker, our strategy to improve exchange rate stability will reduce imported inflation and fuel prices. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana will maintain an appropriate monetary policy stance and use its liquidity management interventions to support the disinflation process. Right Honorable Speaker, to achieve our expenditure-led fiscal consolidation objectives, we will implement the following measures. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to our expenditure measures. Mr. Speaker, the following expenditure measures will be implemented in 2025 and the medium term to support fiscal consolidation agenda. First, we will conduct a comprehensive audit to validate the quantum of arrests and commitment as at 31st December 2024. Mr. Speaker, the mandatory use of blanket purchase order to capture multi-year commitment contracts in line with our medium-term expenditure ceilings will be implemented. We will amend the Public Procurement Act to provide for an independent value for money office to scrutinize government procurement. Mr. Speaker, we will also work with Parliament to amend the Public Procurement Act to make commencement certificate and budgetary provision a prerequisite for all procurement that will be paid by the central government. Mr. Speaker, we will fully integrate GANEPS and GIFMIS to ensure that only MDA's projects and purchase orders that have approved budget and allotment can obtain procurement approvals. Mr. Speaker, we will operationalize the compliance desk at the Ministry of Finance to monitor reports on commitment and arrest accumulation. Mr. Speaker, aside that, we will publish a PFM league table for compliance purposes. We will strictly enforce sanctions under the sections 96 to 98 of the Public Financial Management Act for breaches of the PFM Act, specifically those that relate to arrest accumulation and commitment control. Right Honorable Speaker, we will cut waste and we will cut it very deep. Mr. Speaker, Speaker, in this regard, we have selected expenditure items including the Ghana Cares, the USTAT, One District, One Factory for complete elimination. Mr. Speaker, we will reassign the functions of development authorities such as Coastal Development Authority, the Northern Development Authority, the Middle Belt Development Authority to the district assemblies and do away with the development authorities. So, Speaker, we will amend the Petroleum Revenue Management Act to allocate all ABFA resources for infrastructure use, not for goods and services, but for infrastructure use. So, Speaker, the National Health Insurance will receive full allocation under the earmark funds Capping and Realignment Act. So, Speaker, the Road Fund will receive full allocation under the earmark fund and Capping and Realignment Act. So, Speaker, JNPC share of net carried and participating interest from 30, we will reduce the GNPC share of net carried and participating interest from 30% to 15% and fully restore transfers to GNPC under the earmark fund and Capping Act. Right, Honorable Speaker, we'll be amending the Mineral Income and Investment Fund Act to ensure that 80% of the royalties originally maintained by MIF is transferred to the Consolidated Fund for Infrastructure Development. Right, Honorable Speaker, we will strengthen social protection through the implementation of new interventions such as the no academic fee policy for all first-year students in public tertiary institutions under the No Fee Stress Initiative. The Speaker, it also includes the free tertiary education for persons with disability, free primary health care, the Ghana Medical Trust Care, otherwise known as Mahama Care, and free sanitary pads for schoolgirls. Mr. Speaker, to address the energy sector challenges, including reducing the quantum of large energy sector shortfalls, the following energy sector recovery program interventions will be implemented this year. First, Mr. Speaker, ECG and NEDCO will implement a number of measures, including metering and implementation of private sector participation. Mr. Speaker, we'll also implement the liquid fuel to gas swap through an increase in N-gas supply from 60 MMSC per day to 100 MMSC to take advantage of cheaper gas prices and others. Mr. Speaker, we will complete the IPP capacity renegotiation to generate some savings through negotiated lower fixed capacity charges and variable O&M charges. Mr. Speaker, as agreed with the IMF by the previous administration, we will implement the following ESRP measures to achieve the structural benchmark of the IMF program. Mr. Speaker, PURC will continue to implement the quarterly tariff adjustment to reflect changes in inflation, exchange rate, and generation mix. Mr. Speaker, PURC will also undertake a major tariff adjustment, which will be due in fourth quarter of 2025, to reflect capacity charges, additional liquid fuel usage, and additional CAPEX. The weighted average cost of gas will be increased from the current $7.80 per MMBTU to $8.45 to reflect the increased prices of natural gas as well as the changes in the supply mix. Mr. Speaker, the subsidy on weighted average cost of gas granted to some ceramic companies through the discounted industrial development tariff will be reversed. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to the revenue measures. Mr. Speaker, in proposing some revenue measures to achieve the 2025 fiscal target for your consideration, I'll first take you to the IMF requirement. Mr. Speaker, this measure is inconsistent with our commitment under the IMF-supported program to observe a non-oil tax revenue effort of 0.6% point of GDP annually as part of the measures to improve domestic revenue mobilization and achieve our debt sustainability target over the medium term. Right Honorable Speaker, despite our commitment to increase the non-oil tax revenue by 0.6%, we have programmed the following nuisance taxes for removal in line with our manifesto promise. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on betting. We will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy, of 1%. We will abolish the emission levy, otherwise as a Wusie tax. We will abolish the VAT on motor vehicle insurance policy. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 1.5% withholding tax on unprocessed gold by small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable income. Right Honorable Speaker, the removal of these taxes will ease the burden on households and improve their disposable incomes. In addition, it will support business growth and improve tax compliance. Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, the tax refund account has been abused in recent years. In the last 8 years, a study revealed that 29.1 billion Ghana cedis had accrued to the tax refund account, with only 12.5 billion Ghana cedis, representing 43% of the total accrued amount, being used for tax refund purposes. Mr. Speaker, the study also revealed that 16.6 billion Ghana cedis, representing 57% of the total amount accumulated in the tax refund account, was misapplied. Mr. Speaker, which is a total violation of the Revenue Administration Act, Act 915, and the Public Financial Management Act. Instructively, Mr. Speaker, there were virtually no tax refund arrests over the period. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, we are reducing the current tax refund ceiling by 2 percentage points from 6% to 4% of total revenue, as defined in Section 69 of the Revenue Administration Act, Act 915. Mr. Speaker, by reducing the ceiling on the tax refund from 6% to 4%, Right Honorable Speaker, we have saved the taxpayer 3.8 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this amount is enough to close the revenue shortfalls from the removal of the e-levy and the betting levy. Mr. Speaker, the e-levy would have accrued 1.9 billion Ghana cedis, and the betting tax would have accrued 180 million. The two put together is just above 2 billion Ghana cedis. By reducing the tax refund account from 6 to 4, it is enough to remove this tax, and the savings will be provided to take care of social interventions. Mr. Speaker, already we have saved 3.8 billion cedis for 2025 alone from one source, and this is enough to close the gap from the taxes we have removed today. Mr. Speaker, to address the concerns from well-meaning Ghanaians on how we are going to close the revenue shortfalls as a result of the removal of the selected taxes, the answer is that we have stopped the bleeding. We have have stopped the bleeding. Mr. Speaker, accordingly, with this budget, we will amend the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915. This measure will improve the tax revenue, net of tax refund, by 2%, representing 0.3% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, in line with government policy, the 2025 minimum wage recently negotiated with the National Tripartite Committee will be zero rated. This is consistent with our resolve to protect the poor and the vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, again, without increasing the levy, we will also review the Energy Sector Levies Act to consolidate the energy debt recovery, the Energy Sector Recovery Levy, and the Sanitation and Pollution Levy into one levy and use the proceeds to cater for energy sector shortfalls and service the inherited debt service obligation. Mr. Speaker, the reset has just begun. Right Honorable Speaker, the rest of the energy sector levies, including the Road Fund Levy, Energy Fund Levy, Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy, Public Lighting Levy, and National Electrification Levy will remain to support the achievement of their intended objectives. Right Honorable Speaker, Ghana has not sufficiently capitalized on the benefits of its extractive sector to generate revenue to support development and diversification. We have failed to leverage our natural wealth by capturing its rent and channeling it towards productive infrastructure and human capital. Natural resource rent, which is the difference between the revenue of a commodity and the average cost of producing that commodity, is about 14% of GDP in the case of Ghana. However, Mr. Speaker, revenue from extractive industry is around 1.5% of GDP only. This is because, as a country, we have failed to fully capture the economic rent of our natural resources. Mr. Speaker, whereas global gold prices have seen some significant increase in recent times, Ghana has not been able to take full advantage of the development. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, we are proposing to increase the Growth and Sustainability Levy from 1% on gross production of mining companies to 3% to enable the nation to have its fair share of the windfall. Mr. Speaker, we also propose to extend the sunset clause to 2028. Mr. Speaker, we also propose to extend the sunset clause of the special import levy to 2028. Mr. Speaker, Ghanaians and this Honorable House will recall that road tolls on public roads were zero rated in the year 2022. Demand for construction and improvement of roads infrastructure continues to increase, even as substantial arrests and claims in the road sector remains. Right Honorable Speaker, while the annual average collection from road tolls have not been significant compared to its potential, the existing zero-rated policy for road tolls has increased the situation and dimmed the prospect of raising enough revenue from tolls to road construction for road significant compared to its potential. The existing zero-rated policy for road tolls has increased the situation and dimmed the prospect of raising enough revenue. We also strengthen the legal and regulatory regime for non-tax revenue and enforce the framework to improve service delivery. This will be achieved through the introduction of an overarching non-tax revenue legislation, amendment of existing relevant laws, and the development of a national non-tax revenue strategy and policy. Mr. Speaker, as part of the reforms, To improve other non-tax revenue streams, government will explore the operationalization of a regulatory framework for collection, management, and reporting of property rates consistent with our medium-term revenue strategy 2024 to 2027 and the Local Government Act. So, Speaker, we believe that the local authorities must be given the opportunity to collect their own property rates. Mr. Speaker, the current compliance rate for SMEs and personal income tax is below 30%, which is extremely low. Government will embark on an aggressive and sustained tax education campaign in the next 2 to 3 years to ensure improved compliance and tax revenue mobilization. We will also institute a quarterly dialogue on tax issues among the Ghana Revenue Authority, Ministry of Finance, and the business community to ensure that issues affecting businesses are addressed promptly. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to VAT reforms. Right Honourable Speaker, we commit to the people of Ghana and this House, the business community, that we will undertake a comprehensive value-added tax reform this year. Mr. Speaker, with the aim to review the current distortions and cascading structure of the value-added tax regime. Ghana's effective rate, VAT rate is about 22%. This is obviously because the 2.5% Get Fund levy, the National Health Insurance levy of 2.5%, and the COVID levy are well added to the base for a final determination of what is due for VAT purposes. So, Speaker, aside the high VAT rate, businesses are not permitted by law to claim their input VAT for NHIL, Get Fund, and COVID levy, compounding the burden on households. Right Honourable Speaker, our VAT regime has been distorted and rendered inefficient. It combines both VAT and sales tax principles with a flat rate, standard rate, and levies. We have requested for technical assistance from the Fiscal Affairs Department of the IMF on VAT reforms. It is expected that the IMF mission will commence in April 2025. The recommendations from the Technical Assistance Mission are expected to inform our reform. So, Speaker, ahead of the IMF Technical Assistance Mission, I will inaugurate a VAT reform task force to hold broad consultation with key stakeholders for their input. So, Speaker, the parameters for VAT reform will be is for them to complete this year. So, Speaker, the parameters will include the following. 1, abolishing the COVID levy. So, Speaker, reversing the decoupling of Get Fund and NHIL VAT from VAT. So, Speaker, reducing the effective VAT rate for households and businesses. Reversing the VAT flat rate regime and upwardly adjusting the VAT registration threshold to exempt micro and small businesses from the collection of VAT. The Speaker will also improve compliance through public education and awareness. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to revenue mobilization and resource allocation. Mr. Speaker, total revenue and grant for 2025 is projected at 223.8 billion Ghana cedis, or 17.2% of GDP, up from 186.5 billion, or 17.4% of GDP. The projection is underpinned by non-oil revenue measures, which are expected to yield at least 0.6% of GDP. So, Speaker, total expenditure on commitment basis for 2025 has been programmed at 269.1 billion, representing 20.7% of GDP, down from 279.2 billion, which is 26% of GDP in the year 2024. Primary expenditure on commitment basis is projected at 204.7 billion Ghana cedis, representing 15.8% of GDP, which is a significant decline from 232.4 billion, representing 21.7% of GDP in the year 2024. Mr. Speaker, based on the resource allocation from 2025 fiscal year, the total appropriations for the year ending 31st December 2025 is 290,971,212,435 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, budget financing. Right Honorable Speaker, based on the estimate for total revenue and grant and total expenditure, the projected overall balance on commitment basis is a deficit of 43.8 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 3.1% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance on commitment basis is a surplus of 20.3 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 1.5% of GDP. On cash basis, Mr. Speaker, overall balance is a deficit of 56.9 billion Ghana cedis, equivalent to 4.1% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance on cash basis is again a surplus of 7.3 billion, equivalent to 0.5% of GDP. Right Honorable Speaker, the cash deficit of 56.9 billion is expected to be financed from both foreign and domestic sources. The total foreign net financing will amount to 21.4 billion Ghana cedis. Foreign financing will include a provision for financing from IMF ECF program disbursed of 720 billion Ghana cedis and the World Bank Development Policy operations of 600 million Ghana cedis. The residual net domestic financing will amount to 36.9 billion, representing 65% of total financing for 2025. This is expected to be sourced from the issuance of debt at the short end of the domestic market and opening of the domestic market. Mr. Speaker, the government will take steps to reopen the domestic bond market to extend the maturity profile. The reopening will be executed cautiously to establish large-size benchmark bonds that will enhance market liquidity. Right Honorable Speaker, further is to reduce the risk on debt portfolio of government, and we will build cash buffers to support effective implementation of the liability management strategy. Mr. Speaker, this will help smoothing the redemption profile and mitigate refinancing risk associated with Ghana's debt portfolio. Mr. Speaker, the government in 2025 and the medium term will implement liability management operations to manage the risk embedded in the Eurobond debt profile. Right Honorable Speaker, beginning 2025, we will commence the operationalization of Section 37 to Section 44 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, we will be building sufficient buffers in the sinking fund as a landmark reform to manage our public debt. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm pleased to report to the House that following our proactive fiscal management strategy, in our engagement with the market, this management strategy has yielded sufficient dividend. Mr. Speaker, on the 7th of January 2025, the NDC government inherited a 91-day Treasury bill rate of 28.19%. Mr. Speaker, just 2 months into this administration, we have successfully reduced this rate to 17.72% as at last Friday. Mr. Speaker, this represents a reduction of over 10%. In other words, 1,047 basis points in just 2 months. Mr. Speaker, similarly, on the 7th January 2024, we inherited a 182-day Treasury bill rate at 28.92%. We have again successfully reduced that rate to 18.97% as at Friday, 7th March 2025. This represents a reduction of 995 basis points in only 2 months. Mr. Speaker, again, on the 7th of January 2025, we inherited a 364-day Treasury bill rate of 30.15%. We have successfully reduced this rate to 19.93% as at Friday, 7th March 2025. Mr. Speaker, this represents a reduction of 1,022 basis points in just 2 months. Mr. Speaker, on average, rates have fallen by over 1,000 basis points, signifying a strong investor confidence, crowding in the private sector, reducing the cost of doing business, and overall acceptance of economic policies of President John Dramani Mahama, ultimat't laying the groundwork for sustained macroeconomic stability. It has been done already. So, Mr. Speaker, Right Honourable Speaker, the key policy intervention to support economic transformation and job creation agenda include the following. Mr. Speaker, the 24-hour economy aimed at stimulating economic growth by creating an enabling environment for businesses and institutions to operate 24/7 in 3 shifts of 8 hours each to boost production, promote productivity, and generate well-paying jobs. We will be presenting the policy to Parliament in due course for consideration. Accordingly, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Act, the GIPC Act, and other enabling legislations will be reviewed to support the 24-hour economy policy. Right Honourable Speaker, we'll roll out the implementation of the $10 billion Big Push policy for strategic infrastructure development to open up the country and drive sustainable economic growth. Right Honourable Speaker, the Ghana Gold Board will be established in the course of the year and as soon as possible. So, Speaker, we will stabilize the Ghana cedi and provide stability to the macroeconomy. We will implement an economic transformational agenda underpinned by structural reforms anchored on promoting modernized agriculture, agribusiness, and value addition for import substitution, export, and job creation. Mr. Speaker, we will complement monetary policy with fiscal and real sector policies to reduce inflation. Food inflation will be reduced through the implementation of the Agriculture for Economic Transformation agenda anchored on our 24-hour economy. Right Honourable Speaker, we will undertake key structural reforms to support inclusive economic growth, fiscal and debt sustainability, sound public financial management, efficient public service delivery, and good governance. Mr. Speaker, we will restructure the Bank of Ghana to strengthen its independence and operationalize its efficiency mandate. Mr. Speaker, we will ensure that social protection is adequately catered for in the course of the year. We will use government procurement to drive Made in Ghana agenda to promote production and consumption of Made in Ghana goods. Right Honourable Speaker, to demonstrate this agenda, as I said, I came to this House with a presentation of a bag proudly made in Ghana by Horseman. Mr. Speaker, this should be encouraged. Right Honourable Speaker, beginning this year, we will formalize the export of Ghanaian labor to other countries. We will ensure a structured and beneficial system for Ghanaian workers seeking employment abroad and create safer legal pathway for them to work in foreign countries whilst protecting their rights and welfare. Mr. Speaker, this will also reduce illegal migration, prevent worker exploitation, and maximize the economic benefits of remittance and boost foreign exchange earnings. Mr. Speaker, I now take you to how these resources will be allocated in the year 2025. Mr. Speaker, we will provide a cedi equivalent of $279 million as a revolving fund for the Ghana Gold Board to be able to purchase and export at least 3 tons of gold per week from small-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated 13.85 billion Ghana cedis for Big Push project. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated 13.85 billion Ghana cedis for the Big Push program. Mr. Speaker, an amount of 499.8 million Ghana cedis has been allocated for the $292.4 million Ghana cedis to commence the distribution of free sanitary pads to female students in primary and secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, we have allocated again an amount of 242.5 million Ghana cedis to support the victim of Akosombo Dam spillage. Right on. An amount of 200 million Ghana cedis to support the victim of tidal wave disaster that recently displaced residents in certain parts of Ketu South constituency. Mr. Speaker, the overarching concern about free secondary education has been its quality and the absence of dedicated sources of financing. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has resolved it. Mr. Speaker, let me take this again. The overarching concern about free secondary education has been its quality and the absence of a dedicated sources of funding. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has resolved the funding challenges by uncapping the GET fund. Mr. Speaker, this makes available dedicated funding for full financing of free senior secondary school education and free tertiary education for persons with disability. Mr. Speaker, therefore, Capping and Realignment Act will be amended to uncap the Ghana Education Trust Fund. Mr. Speaker, this year, the budget for free senior secondary school education program is 3.5 billion Ghana cedis. By uncapping the GET fund, we will be making available an additional 4.1 billion Ghana cedis, specifically for financing free secondary education program and other related expenditures. Mr. Speaker, aside the uncapping of GET fund, we have also absorbed the debt service made up of interest and principal from the Dache bond that GET fund contracted. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 564.6 million Ghana cedis for the provision of curriculum-based textbooks covering the following. 1. 4 sets of KG books and workbooks for about 2.8 million learners. Mr. Speaker, we have also provided for 4 sets of primary textbooks for about 800,000 learners. Mr. Speaker, we have also provided for 9 sets of SHS textbooks for about 540,000 learners. Right, Honorable Speaker, under the school feeding program, budgetary provision has been increased from the 1.3 billion Ghana cedis last year to 1.78 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, representing a 33% increase, the allocation for 2025 reflects an increase in feeding costs per meal, per child, from the 1 cedi 50 pesos to 2 cedis, representing 33.3%. Mr. Speaker, government has also allocated 145.5 million Ghana cedis to the capitation grant, up from 84 million Ghana cedis in 2024. This is an increase of 73.4% over the previous year. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated 203 million Ghana cedis for the payment of teacher training allowances and another 480 million Ghana cedis to nursing training allowances. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we have uncapped the National Health Insurance Levy. Mr. Speaker, we have uncapped the National Health Insurance Levy. An amount of about 10 billion Ghana cedis has been programmed for the National Health Insurance Scheme. And this amount is expected to be used for the following: claim payments, essential medicine, vaccine payment, free primary health care, the Ghana Medical Care Trust, Mr. Speaker, and bridging the USAID financing shortfall. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2025, government will continue to implement reforms and increase budgetary allocation to enhance the implementation of 4 targeted social protection programs, namely National Health Insurance, the LEAP program, the school feeding program, and the capitation grant. Right Honorable Speaker, under the LEAP program, beneficiaries will be increased from the current 350,000 to 400,000 beginning July 2025. The allocation of 728.8 million Ghana cedis for last year has been increased to 953.5 million Ghana cedis in the year 2025. So, Speaker, we have also uncapped the road fund. An amount of 2.81 billion Ghana cedis has been programmed for the Ghana Road Fund to be used solely for road maintenance. This represents an increase of 155% over the 2024 allocation of 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 7.5 billion Ghana cedis to the District Assembly Common Fund. In accordance with our decentralization policy, we propose to Parliament that a minimum of 80% of the funds allocated to the District Assembly Common Fund should be sent directly to the district assemblies to spur economic growth and at the district level to deepen decentralization. Right Honorable Speaker, I repeat, we have allocated an amount of 7.5 billion Ghana cedis to the district assemblies common fund. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with our decentralization policy and objective, we propose to Parliament that a minimum of 80% of the funds should be sent directly to the district assemblies to spur economic growth at the district level and deepen decentralization. Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that in a stark contrast to what has happened recently at the District Assembly Common Fund, where only 50% of the released amount are sent to the District Assembly for the purposes of running the assemblies. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 1.5 billion Ghana cedis for Agriculture for Economic Transformational Program, of which Feed Ghana, Ghana Grains Development Project, Vegetable Development Project, and Nkoko Nketenkete are all key components of the program. Right Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated 51.3 million Ghana cedis as seed fund for the establishment of the Women's Development Bank. Mr. Speaker, we have also allocated 300 million Ghana cedis to the National Apprenticeship Program. Mr. Speaker, I repeat, we have also allocated an amount of 300 million Ghana cedis to the National Apprenticeship Program. Right Right Honorable Speaker, we have also allocated an amount of 100 million Ghana cedis to the Edumewura program. Mr. Speaker, an amount of 100 million Ghana cedis has been allocated to the National Codes program. Mr. Speaker, another amount of 100 million Ghana cedis has been allocated for the payment of monthly allowance to all Assembly members. Specific policy interventions to deal with the challenges of various MDAs. So, Speaker, I want to repeat this. So, Speaker, sector ministers will be presenting to this House a detailed sectorial performance and outlook, as well as specific sector interventions to deal with the challenges of various MDAs. This is indeed a departure from the norm, where ministers of finance present detailed sectorial performance as part of their budget speech. So, Speaker, I believe sector ministers must be made to do so. Right Honorable Speaker, in conclusion. So, Speaker, in conclusion. Mr. Speaker, the state of the economy, as I have presented, does not reflect an economy that has turned the corner. It reflects an economy in severe distress, burdened with debt repayment harms, mismanagement, and lack of accountability. The budget sets Ghana on a path of fiscal responsibility, debt sustainability, macroeconomic stability, and job creation. It is about resetting the economy and restoring hope. Ghanaians reaffirmed their faith in a better future when they actively participated in the National Economic Dialogue on the 3rd and 4th of March 2025. A key outcome of the dialogue was the confirmation that the fundamental problem with our economy is fiscal indiscipline. The NPP administration awarded contracts outside the expenditure framework. They borrowed over and above Ghana's capacity to repay. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahamad's administration will be fiscally disciplined and deliver improved public service to our people in a cost-effective manner. Mr. Speaker, we remain steadfast in meeting the IMF program targets while restoring Ghana's creditworthiness. We have achieved a lot in a short time, but this is only the beginning. Our commitment to reform we will not waver on that, Mr. Speaker. We have achieved a lot in this short time, and our commitment to reform will not waver. Those who doubt our resolve should not underestimate the determination of the people of Ghana, who will no longer tolerate ineffective governance. Together, we will navigate these turbulent times and emerge stronger. Mr. Speaker, we are making serious progress. Right Honorable Speaker, we are making progress. We We committed to running a lean, efficient government of 60 ministers. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to scrapping the e-levy. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to scrapping the Burton tax. We have delivered. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to eliminate academic fee for first-year public tertiary students. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to providing free tertiary education for all people with disability. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to providing dedicated source of funding for free secondary education. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to distributing sanitary pads to our schoolgirls. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to uncap Get Fund. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to uncap the national health insurance. We have delivered. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to uncap the road fund to maintain our roads. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to hold a national forum on education. We have delivered. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to hold a national dialogue on the economy. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver free primary health care. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver Mahama Care Program to finance the treatment of non-communicable disease. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to deliver free textbooks to school children. We have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to begin the implementation of $10 million Big Push program. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we committed to constitute a review process for our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, we are delivering. Mr. Speaker, we committed to build the Ghana we want together. We are delivering. Right Honorable Speaker, we committed to recover all looted state funds under our Operation Recover All Loot program. We are delivering. Mr. Speaker, we committed to reset Ghana. We are delivering. Right Honorable Speaker, I call on Parliament, the business community, civil society, investors, and all citizens to support the bold reforms outlined in this budget. Together, Mr. Speaker, we have the power to build a resilient economy that will help us tackle the challenges we face as a country. This budget is a foundation upon which we will build a more resilient and equitable society. Mr. Speaker, this budget is not just about numbers. It is about a blueprint for growth, stability, and opportunity. With unity and determination, we can restore faith in our economy, foster innovation, and uplift every Ghanaian. Mr. Speaker, with unity and determination, I repeat, we can restore faith in our economy, foster innovation, and uplift every Ghanaian. Right Honorable Speaker, on behalf of His Excellency the President, I invite this House to join hands with us as we work to build the Ghana we want together. Mr. Speaker, I thank you so much. Idebi Keke.
members. Members, honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, for finance has taken 1 hour 40 minutes to make the statement, and I believe by our standing orders the statement time is ended. We now move on to the commencement of public business. Item 8, presentation of papers. The following papers to be presented. Presentation of papers. The following papers to be presented. 8A, by the Minister for Finance.
Annual report on the Petroleum Fund for the 2023-24 fiscal year.
Honorable members, this refers to 8A Roman 1, and this has been presented and is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report to the House. We now move on to A Roman 2. Annual report.
Report on the collection and utilization of the African Union Import Levy 2024 fiscal year.
Honorable members, this report is also duly laid and is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report to the House. I will now want to hear from the leaders. I saw the minority leader give an indication that he may want to have a word. Yes. Yes, minority leader.
Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we have been presented with part 2 of the lamentation series. The part 1, Mr. Speaker, the part 1 was Mahamanomics. The part 2 is Forcenomics. And it's very clear, Mr. Speaker, that under the economy that they complain about, the growth was 5.7%. And under the research economy, the growth is rather going down. You are projecting a 4-point-something growth. That is what you are doing. Mr. Speaker, the economy that they complain about left us with 4 months of import cover, and they are projecting under reset 3 months. Mr. Speaker, these are the very people who managed the economy up to 2016 and left us with some IPP debts. Today they are telling us that they are coming to renegotiate the very disaster they left us. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Minority Leader. Honorable Minority
Mr.
Leader.
Speaker, we are not debating today. We are giving an indication.
Honorable Minority Leader, please be guided by Order 91.
Mr. Speaker, exactly so. Very, very guided by that. Mr. Speaker, I'm in Order 91.
Your statement was that you are not debating today.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, we are not making comment on it. We are not going to make comment today. 91, Mr. Speaker, when he makes a statement, we are supposed to comment on it.
Yes.
Yes, so I'm saying that we are not going to engineer the comment today. Because, Mr. Speaker, they are not ready. We are ready, but we think they are not ready. So I'm only going to give an indication. Mr. Speaker, let the minority leader enjoy his bona fides for this minute. Just relax, Mr. Speaker. Yes.
I only want to draw your attention to the fact that you can only make comments.
Very well.
And the comments not more than 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, in commenting on this statement by the Finance Minister, it is clear to all of us in this chamber that today they decided to populate this chamber with their members only to come
Honorable Minority Leader.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
The Minister for Finance did not talk about the population of the chamber. So that is not part of the statement of the Minister. Please.
Mr. Speaker, I noticed that when the Finance Minister came to present his statement, for the first time after the inauguration, the swearing in, the majority side was heavily populated. Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, we have witnessed what we can best describe as an Azan budget. Mr. Speaker, they are all much talked about for 24-hour economy. The president came here, they said it was all ready. The finance minister comes here, and again, the 24-hour economy policy is not included in his budget statement. country have been waiting for this 24-hour economy policy. The minister tells us the policy will be brought later. Hey, Ato, the policy will be brought later. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that all the jobs they promised the youth of this country was merely an Azam promise. Mr. Speaker, there is no inspiration from this budget. There is no hope in this budget. The repetition of the social intervention programs, Mr. Speaker, and then the minister complained that some contracts at the road sector had no commencement certificate. Go to the Chain Homes Road. There is a road construction on the Chain Homes. There is a new road being constructed to the 10 rooms with a new runabout. There is no commencement. We did a search. There is no commencement. There is no PP approval. You are doing, Mr. Speaker, you have started construction.
Minority Leader. Honorable Minority Leader. Honorable Minority Leader. Honorable Minority Leader. Please, comments. I have given you a privilege. Don't abuse it.
Mr. Speaker, I shall conclude my comments by saying that whereas the Minister of Finance told us that there will be heavy sanctions against all those who go contrary to the PFM Act, under his own administration, the Chain Homes Road is being constructed now. A new runabout is being constructed. Meanwhile, there is no commencement certificate. Meanwhile, there is no PP approval. Mr. Speaker, the sanctions must start with his own ministers. Mr. Speaker, we are ready for our comments. We know they are not ready, but if the minister is going to stay, Mr. Speaker, let us start the comments on this budget statement here and now, because this Azam budget, we cannot allow it to get onto the shelves for Ghanaians to think that there is any hope. Mr. Speaker, there is going to be comment to expose them. Thank you very much.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Minority Leader and I share something in common. We were both assemblymen. And when the Minister of Finance made the unprecedented announcement of a gargantuan sum of money for assemblymen, I saw the gleeful smile on his face. Unfortunately, it will not apply to ex-assemblymen. Mr. Speaker, this clearly is a budget of a government and a party that keeps its promises. Almost every promise that was made by John Dramani Mahama is being fulfilled in less than 120 days. This budget is a budget for Makola women. This budget is a budget for assemblymen. This budget is a budget for girls. This budget on this side have started using sanitary pads. Because the sanitary pad is for the female students. That's why I said girls. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget for school children. They will now get the set of textbooks that they need to study. And peace of mind. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget that delivers solid reforms. And this is a budget that is moving our growth from Galamsey growth to real growth. Mr. Speaker, by the time we finish implementing this budget, and by the time we finish implementing the three that will come after this one, Osunu Beye Nkitikiti. Osunu Beye Nkitikiti. Osunu Nkitikiti. To wait, Mr. Speaker, the elephant will become small. Osunu Beye Nkitikiti.
Majority Leader. Majority Leader, the Minister for Finance did not talk about Osunu. So, Osunu is not part of the statements. Please.
Mr. Speaker, on that note, I want to assure my friend, the minority leader, that the road at Chain Homes that is being done is not a new project. It's not a new project. So don't. There's something else you wanted to add. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget that gives hope to Ghanaians. This is a budget that will stabilize the economy. This is a budget that will create jobs for the youth of this country. Because this is a budget that will stabilize the economy and provide the enabling environment for the private sector to thrive and create jobs for the youth of this country. Mr. Speaker, fishermen, Okada riders, taxi drivers, students, and the energy sector is going to be salvaged by the implementation of this budget. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Minister of Finance for making the statement and to assure my friend, the minority leader, that we are
bucket of flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any.
NDC pe jirudu ye ke ko jefia Dukrola John Dramani Mahama pe jirudu a eyenye wo nkeke gbantoro se gbanto ke wo ko pe budget enye garodo iji wa zoro le pe ama wo ko edare du komo vi ogbo egba me karaji be mi po wona kata le ke oyiji le mi afa enupomoji eta mi egbo na gagagere me mi akpo aleke leke the budget over like grabo oh you must na ka gomuna na kamalamu ke ya de dumaviaro nyaro glom kanta mi egbo na gagagere me nyere ka nyimo la afia goju enye mama gari no nyofo nye pre ndo ha chiyo apranye pranye la gbonye afo imanu kamel do via ha la gbonye mi gbona gagagere budget ya ma agbeme de ka avaro close so be miamado kenye miamama mata ase enye tututu doctor kese ato forcing eva blog omo a nyatenu agba amena minemia asegomo eyi nyoto amia fuka fogbo nukawe na sele budget ya ma nuke ya na kpo be budget ya ahave na dukoya ye odukomo vio kata ha me agbagbaje be ma anye inu ike mia agba amena mita nupola o mada pe akama ti be na ko to jire no viere ha be na telepathy npo mogbo be mia agba garodo ya manue mia ase agomanyue eye anye mokpokpo aroko mokpokpo vena duko a mikata mia anya ta magra afama ye do ha chi o le gbonye Abraham
ma hwime le so wan ya jimi ogbogbo
nyanko abodo bia
baba
eke me mokpokpo de mia pa molo zro ba kare me jijo ponto die ne me se gomo tututu nke jojo Masa duma viro lido ma dogo viro lido ho nkeji ha obo budget anyo ni monya la ko lagbo maka ma ire fodovia gbogba fodovia duma viro ma dogo re ma pe mo budget anyo lake nke na ko budget ke o fia na ta gbero me ha miajo
mama ga pe ma do ndo na mi fa nu polo kata ma gloni jigede le ododo ado wana gedejibe ngochi mana na kajim cho gbogbo na amali na nyi ngochi ne bete gbogbo go tana ra she ngochi ang mi ke ola ba aya fufu mi to e kana o te chi agboko agbogbo ga nyi duma fi geda bale ma gbe ndia me na ulo mo popo mo be betting tax najo e-levy najo covid levy najo ple anububu ado ko jogba nyi to ya e-levy ajo betting tax ha ajo now na nyeba mi ekpo e-levy pakle betting tax ata some of ma mama de alofaje dreka yenya e-levy mama de alofaje awo yenya betting tax ha gaka covid levy yi ha oba ajojoga gaka ekpede IMF condition onchi ha fi wolaf mangojita mopopo liba jojoga gaka manya fifia now emission levy apeya makwe emission levy mama gaka ko nyasusu ga koyide magbe emission levy ali wo hakam ho gaka jidudu ikana no nyiva ya gava amendment na ata de gaba ga increase emission levy ya ga cover bubu le acha bubu ada mai ke be drive on anu kakam 100 cedis a year imanya no nkula ni majula be ovazu people drive on aga be yoko emission levy ha kokko wo hujja darajina mi so emission levy ha over away VAT on motor vehicles ika anya value added tax ikana anona avuoji we vieto nanya ba wo ayida akoganka insurance policy yo kana wo awana VAT anona jina ko insurance wa wo ad VAT mo hada ikaba wo insurance awaga now over 1% tax on unprocessed gold by small scale miners afiaba small scale miners umanya galanse toy mayoko ho o achan awana shika kukufa ngudoa gold vivi mo ho wo adrana afiaba ho kana tax viado de aji abala magbenyi chono no be na akpo Ghana Chamber of Mines for report ikana do 2024 per report over one Kaka we ekpona na kacho jidudu boku de revenue kana agada nwemoko mamaga nwiyo kana adoa wo asugbo now nanya bamie elanku de school developer akbaja 292.4 million Ghana cedis enya jidudu pododo ikana wada sanitary pad mama na sukuvio kana ele primary pakple SHS no nyagada nyagbo afeji akosombo spillage 242.5 million Ghana cedis ye wo ekokoga akpada mamo hangchi Tatu South Africa na duplola ava 200 million Ghana cedis. Yenye allocation wo flafia ikebe 200 million Ghana cedis ma ukoga aje achafua dodo fa akpaji. Mama gangura kai kama gasa ni dia magleba nya sanitary pad nya eleva viena ma. Kama eje masiko nya die je ma labe unto okpo mwime nyonwe na nyeta flache nyonwe na nyonto okpo mwime ra to bivi to ma fi mi won. Now for the past 8 years, uche your curriculum, textbook mala school so. Fifle if mi mfuma mayo la first year fia la SHS textbook adaka maliwo azazamu. Daka wo allocation fia ba 564.6 million Ghana cedis. Ye anya allocation wo awona textbook e kana wo gana myano view kana ala school so. Hafi free secondary education aikaba wo ankap get fund wo get fund per gama gadom wara ka wo ga ba le restricted no ko fia balasonyo jiko pogola kwa 3.5 billion Ghana cedis ye agagagada free SHS for dodo makwa anyanwe to kwa example ayola ka ogagara primary school ha primary ya capitation grant to primary vada shine JHS afumagoji ha 145.5 million Ghana cedis ye anya allocation ni kana wona kama jogwenwe to ya nurses wo pakla teacher training allowance so don kuji nyicho na the State of the Nation address club ngwa MPP to go cho ma council ga vieto lo for campaign time o council ga mi ayina wo ga education forum o council ga yeah fortunately wo special allocation na teacher training allowance ya ha 203 million Ghana cedis alabana so to 480 million Ghana cedis ko mamaga akwaga ba jidafo plomo popore el budget yang alabo allocation so na sector by sector recherche pour allocation l'état mopopo libe kakape na onwa toto de agade mi afa nguto ma
akpa mi bora gagagade kayo nya vito yo ka ala vina du como vi wa gagagade ma kaka globo mopopo jidafo li tan bora gagagade ma sede
mamaga
lakini kwa nya kina sana budget am
mamaga akpa maza
kana mvi koma ego munyi msemo
mamaga obe aba ma aboro nyagbe ya cho Mr. Doviagbo ba ngochi magia na nakacho ugbogbo yatafanya onye be mienye nyajojo dollar ovo jumavi we mienye tanenye be na lenku de budget ke Dr. Kesela 247 eva khlele egba pe nkekama akwe ba yonya nwa agomoko akpo achomade le budget amane jukoya mamaga akwe ba anu gede wo jojom le Ghana voa do komanya gbogblomu aka budget ke wo aklanfia awe be aja ba mi gbona gbodwe kpoge le ngogba yinya onto nye be ban le sronya le dukoya ma enye na na ke jigere masia magina ba mi adwi de ngogba aka mi akwa ban le sronya fia ba vieto le goma jesu kwa ma abeleke Mr. Doviaje egomena curriculum dodo yo kaji wazo anu fiafia kple nu sosro a wo change dodo ahoho ga ke gbanle yoko jebo wa covid dodo ye anu chi a mama ga afo na vayi afo na gbo ya vayi ma dodo ko do school wo change curriculum wo se ba yo new curriculum wo mazon e ke o jeba wa sure fa textbook o manye ba textbook a jian lo yi boy o kata wo dogo school fia mu ye o kata pe ba enye nu e ke ajukoya tem de eto ambubu e ke agajele nene pa budget ya ma 11 kule nenepe betting tax ya makariji be mi atoro la fo mafia o jijo pom
nka konwe budget akwe ha
mama ga o jijo pom ga kan wi kenele 11 anu enye be akwe be eva gede nwi pa dodo ma IMF dodo adoma tamanya nwonye ke covid va gede IMF pa dodo adoma ga ka 11 kule betting tax ya magble dada to ebe alaika ko dongbe obangbe dodo a esokle fanyinyi yo dongbe ko yo va fia ko awo a trade amala ko anyakpo alaika onoglomi banova teacher training allowance o dagada nurses o to o dagada amokata avazuchi kuko kore pakpa kwajima enwe mo gava nonyi achododo award enchi free senior high amu onoglom le afimia yide akoda kwa achiglinyi manola onogboglomba nenye bo dakon jukoklola John Dramani Mahama ogbona fleet gede free SHS ma kaka free SHS ma o dodo kaka matwe kaka va dodo school feeding ndudu na school view ahoikaji o nota akweba increment vava ngwi yo kata anonyi abaduma vie na abangwi yo kaye sele budget ya ma do jijona yo juko ya pa ngogba yiyi iji memiele tani nyaba ngwi yo kata eke yo nya trade budget ya mako afia ba a dog na nyaba state of the nation unya ekomia no glo o ya nya ko nyova glo ta kaka ya wo akonta de enchi ta afia ba wo kata wo a dog mama ga abele kemino glo anyi ba ngi choya ko o ba last week ho a dollar deliver 8 cedi within 3 hours quick ko ga jo 15 cedis aka momo ko ide jesio tani nyaba ngwi yo kata eke wo the budget amafia ko mia wode aji a secular dodo ojia makaraji ba Ghana mia ha mia kpogboju abaju tana kpo mamodo ma nkoma manya nana ketel budget e over clan mia mama oba budget makpo jidefo gande le ema
aka fo do via global makpo jidefo le ma ta mia gede enya via roji e ma se den block ko be afi mia ba d'accord campaign pe message na mi do ma via cho MPP pakpa je nye be le mi d'accord na NDC a free SHS o free tegerema wo free tegere nka allowance so allowance ha this year kra nyi choko ga glebe o free tegerema ya gere free SHS gbogba mi se be free SHS fia yin ke vala nwenye fia be echa agago biara kamali ke MPP ti rudu koko free SHS cover akodare dodo enu akoko enu ogbopo mi yaro ko we gbaja gara share fisha figa gachi kovana aka fifia budget ya ma ko fodo via gbogba budget ya ma ogbogbo be fifia yopo Ghana free SHS
mama ga akpobe na elanku de enwanguchi akpobe jigeda majina ma kunye susu ayi magba ku the previous mi adonchi akosokple fifitoa now na elanku de free SHS ma fi magada wo bia gbonawa akpobe na duklola state of the nations address Uhun gaba ko for state of the nations address survey no ngo akpobe nya susu no nya funang mono nyama I was comparing with state of the nation address ya wona ple duklola to ple figure yo kana finance minister yo yomle afa ngome tana kpongwa akpagaba enwo atadam le wo mai kabe the state of the nation address kana duklola aina bakple mi kana finance minister fa hlafia show the true reflection of mi kana statement kana
budget
okay road sector debt GM adajeshi ba a fake and a laugh. Mangoja is over something billion Ghana cedis. And me budget amafi flefia road sector alone jidudu pa a fake and would do that flefia in 67.5 billion Ghana cedis. He can jidudu na la jifia kakaga. Now mama got back to your question. Free SHS ayina wo adobo blavu wo akomia bia kama gada no bia menga ba where is the funding fike agachuchuga vavaga oba agali afi unfortunately jogba mieto ya jogba vete ko jogba mieto ya heritage fund ikana previous mahama pajidudu banto no university 2015 ikanya ami per revenue 10% vivimo avant ikana heritage fund wo created that plus subena in case of emergency I don't know a job after after wo blava do magba work on ni ado solve me heritage fund I mean me to work for shiro bodo koko finance free SHS le now ayo vo na ma mo va ko specific funding araka chu te fagu biaraka ba awo ewo akpa ye yo gakpoga acho akono free SHS fund mu kakaye fiflafia ayina ohova dogle fuka ka ba chu mayo gbona cancer go gbona ka ni atrophy ma na follow ma amada yo bia beta na ka free SHS re do cancer ga you ba awo mo cancer go so yenye fiflafia over allocation cho get fund so get fund in Ghana Education Trust Fund. So Ghana Education Trust Fund here a finance na project garala nya for school so school buses ado buildings ado in Nigeria nya for school so ayo nya ba get fund ye free SHS fund ga ko na ko be levy revenue re share ke gagamra get fund for account mala Bank of Ghana lo ado GCB kola the use gamaza za
ayina free senior high
a free SHS and what the car a ganyola which hang about allocation bubu na curriculum per textbook per printing ta fia ba get faneko ya to kunye bo jango free SHS akpogbo be sukuviara ke doma wio gachara fifle fia ala bo black para nwangu chi be vient review discipline no nyi ala ba fifia gava allocation va o gba la print ga asukui ga nguru ga frita ala ba discipline na gra system am unfortunately nyi ga para ngu joji na menye be o ga absorb first year university graduate hope school fees ikaba wo ha o do le ba cho fike galo si le fiko ga ko ga ala ba o fa susu menye be yo fa budget ikana yo khna dare December ikuzamo le da shina fifula fia ikaba magbona ba wo favor gana nka o fa free SHS investing mi o ka o ba yewo awo
Mr. Dovia mama ga abale mi egule don go na yenyama a press conference agaje agoma ho abale ka mi akpoma na cho mi no fi o kanele atiglinye pa akpaje aleba former finance minister yenyama enim Adam to ba yenyama gagbere ma fi mako bada share lo shi ka mi ayida fuma mi aba senya ka glome wo ele ka mi atro yide je dodo aji.
Growth rate, real GDP growth, was 5.7%. And this was released just yesterday by the Ghana Statistical Service, confirmed by the minister today. We took over from the NDC in 2016 with a growth rate of 3.4%. 3.4% against 5.7%. And if you come to the projection for 2025, that is really disturbing. An economy that was broken, recording 5.7%, and a reset economy, as we are being told, is projected to grow at 4%. How can we say that this reset economy will be better than the economy that President Mahama said was criminally mismanaged and which grew at 5.7%? In terms of gross international reserves, again, by the end of 2024, we left with the NDC government $8.9 billion of gross international reserves. And that was the equivalent of 4 months of import cover. The NDC handed over in 2016 with import cover of 3.5%. 2016, we left them with 4 months of import cover. 2025, they are projecting to achieve 3 months of import cover, which is even worse than what they recorded in 2016. Are we moving from? So if a broken economy could leave 4 months of import cover, going back to 3 months of import cover. Ladies and gentlemen, the debt to GDP of Ghana, they have made all the noise about the NPP government excessively borrowing. The debt to GDP at the end of 2024 was 61.8%. Debt to GDP ratio 61.8%. And this when they left office in 2016, it was 73%. It was not until when the GDP was rebased in 2018 that it came to 56%. But the real debt to GDP when they left government was 73%. We left government with 61.8%. It means that Ghana is no longer heavily indebted. We have brought Ghana to debt sustainability path, and we are just left with little percentage points to achieve the IMF target of 55%. If you have 61.8%, you are talking about 6 percentage points to achieve the IMF target of 55%, which Ghana is supposed to achieve by 2028. But ladies and gentlemen, as of 2024, we already have achieved 61.8%. This economy they said was a broken economy ended with a debt to GDP ratio of 61.8%. We have left with the NDC just 6 percentage points to achieve the 55%. But looking at the way they started borrowing, I am worried. I am worried if they will not jeopardize the achievement against that we handed over to them. Trade balances have been confirmed today to be in surplus. Trade balance is in surplus. The current account balance is in surplus. This cannot be a broken economy. The fiscal data was what the minister tried to use to misinform Ghanaians about the economy we handed over to them. The minister was quoting a fiscal deficit on commitment basis of about 8.3% and primary balance of about 3.7% deficit. Ladies and gentlemen, these are cooked figures. These are cooked figures. They have manipulated the data, and we know how they did it. They created a new line called unreleased claims, amounting to 49 billion Ghana cedis. And that is what they have put in the fiscal data to manipulate it to the levels of deficit they are complaining about. But I can tell you, we left a surplus primary balance. When we interrogate the data, every Ghanaian will know that we left a primary balance of a surplus of 0.7% on commitment basis. Ladies and gentlemen, they're talking about IMF, that we have breached the IMF program. I am so shocked that a Minister of Finance will be announcing the breach of the IMF program even before the IMF conducts the review. IMF is conducting the review in April. The Minister for Finance is already giving a judgment that we have breached the IMF program. This has never happened in the history of this country, that a minister will be happy for his country to breach when the IMF has not said so. And that should tell the Ghanaian the lamentation and the misinformation they are carrying out to the world. When a country breaches the IMF program, it has serious implications for attracting investment into the country. This Minister for Finance is appealing to investors to come to Ghana, and the same minister is telling them that the economy is bad when the evidence doesn't support what he said. Is he attracting investment, or he is driving away investment? This is not the way to govern a country. Gentlemen and ladies, the minister also talked about the $10 billion big push. $10 billion big push. And in this budget, he only allocated $800 million. $800 million to the big push projects in this budget. When they want to spend $10 billion, assuming they even average $1 billion, they increase it to $1 billion average a year, they will not even be reaching $5 billion by the end of their term. So the jobs they are promising Ghanaians, they are Sakawa jobs. They are already failing in their promise as far as the big push is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, they talk about the 24-hour economy. 24-hour economy is supposed to incentivize industry to grow the economy. We left government with industry performing 7%. But if you look at the average industry performance from this year 2025 to 2028, by the time they leave government, it is only 5%. Average industry growth, 5% for the next 4 years. When the MPP recorded 7% in 2024. So the 24-hour economy is another Sakawa. The jobs they are promising will not happen. The budget did not address the cost of living issues. Cost of living issues haven't been addressed. Transport fares continue to increase. The budget did not address how they are going to ensure that petroleum product prices do not increase. And once petroleum product prices continue to increase, transport fares will continue to increase. This budget did not address that. This budget did not address energy bills, electricity bills. They didn't talk about how they are going to reduce energy bills. They didn't talk about how to decrease water bills. All these bills will continue to increase, looking at the indicators that we are seeing. And we thought that having campaigned on cost of living crisis and came to power with the support of the Ghanaian people, the least the government could do was to present a budget that will address the cost of living crisis in terms of transport fares, in terms of petroleum product prices, in terms of energy bills. But even when we come to taxes, the minister announced that they are abolishing VAT on motor insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, we were already not collecting VAT on motor insurance. VAT on motor insurance was exempted. Rather, the minister was trying to be smart. They have reintroduced VAT on non-life insurance, with the exception of the motor vehicle insurance. So all other insurance, given that the penetration of the insurance industry is just 1.1%, we are so shocked that the minister will reintroduce VAT on non-life insurance, except motor vehicle insurance. So let us not rejoice over the removal of these taxes, which we expected. What we did not expect was the reintroduction of VAT on insurance. They've also increased the growth and sustainability levy from 1% to 3% for the mining sector and extended the sunset period from 2025 to 2028. When you heard the minister talking about growth, he said that the growth was influenced by the extractives. And so, how can you tax a sector which is giving you growth? The sector that is giving you growth is the sector you want to go and tax. This is good. This is not good for economic growth, and this is not good for the development of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, betting tax that they said they have abolished, we never collected betting tax. We never implement the betting tax. So to come and tell Ghanaians that you have abolished something that was not implemented is to deceive the people of Ghana. My brothers and sisters, they are talking also about gold board. It's important I address this. The gold board, as you heard the minister talk about, is to be financed from the budget. The minister is allocating $279 million to the gold board. We have never funded the gold purchase program or gold for oil program from the budget. It's never happened. And so to fund the gold board from the budget, in our view, is just to put in money to be benefited by NDC cronies. It is to create loot and share. The Bank of Ghana was funding the gold for purchase program.
Mamaga
nyanku
edefu ni kene aiji mfia nya nwi ka omblanyi Mamaga nim Adams banya yoka oblofia dokopomu abeka da flache malaju koma wana nwi kan kuom na komada si Mamaga madasi go na aiji aba betting tax amanya your way introduce you ma ko betting tax adaka
never implemented it introduce
o ma kweda do na mo you ma kwe ha o mi ji bet da vionam la over did say
yoga
Mamaga madengam
yoga because the papa won kuna fodovia aka gronya de ha debt to GDP agbagbon be you gbla aga you gbenya 61.8%. Aike NDC July maima ogla 73 ranyita agbe a fem kala dukoya nchi abale ko gromo no kaka finance minister na me nya be otutu ga okododa koko ide 2027 2028 ta GDP DDEP domestic debt restriction yewe be egba abaka bi pe efo re mo onyo na efo tutu do ngogbo ha pa mede na kina pe
mama ga ekpo bede yiti na mabua ba no oyefugba gaga yo doma wo no nya mama blem la poma repoma vi ko kula ba blazi lele na mena now na oba debt to GDP you blem 61.8d ikaba you total 70 no NDC to 73%. You total 61.8.
NDC won yo
afa kana blom yala fiflafia wo fa guy kana wo do is 200% times more times than how can NDC vado. Now we can never do jenga ba DDP na blood domestic debt restriction. After you over hijack your bondo pakplanio just to meet the requirement na IMF ye. Afia ite MF conditionalities you cover COVID levy ba hakara glamana olema na manyo akala ba COVID levy ha wono mi ama. Male we ba debt ya wo vero 2028. Mama ga mansam namra. Gakana nya ba ya ado ya fugba gama fie go glom na mi ba because NDC 73% de yo to vakarama wa they borrow more than how you can NDC vado akomura mamaga ye nanga po anya mamleka no global life ko mi bata na chale mi langwa na mi onwi ha aba we yomo kana vata da kada motor vehicle mejo he has forgotten angloba ekobade enim Adam should have Tafulache made the soul of this guy rest in peace. Open former minister, he can Ejisu MPR.
Sejona.
Oh, Ejisu MP. Former finance minister, he can
okay. Mankuro John Kuma
was the deputy finance minister then. All right. Alaba Kenofori ata laba one advisor Padia he shouldn't come and lie to us next time. Imagine levy bill na woko edo parliament. Oba that macra imagine mamle ikana ogbona of near increase ga you laba take effect last year January 2024. You may drivers over pack up of Bere na levy avaga koyo diagram Georgie Clamio Gidolapati using GPRT you never garment. Agba Adam Chitra a whole national platform you but they never implemented
betting tax
me. So Vata recommend a language motor vehicle. So imagine levy Yoko Bonnet Bofiba driver Jaglan. You no amendment who is about to introduce the imagine levy.
Imagine levy but you know the Kakoda your Jamia.
Hey, you know, come on, you 1% here. Exactly. If you over agacho ni bubuha agarara ikananya VAT on motor vehicle insurance policy. Ali okana drivers so mi on insurance drivers so mama ga kapo bobuga no vuka fo mo mi blena mi ba yo mo na insurance so and insurance no yo yiwoga VAT adona receipt yo kona jo. They should stop lying to us.
Drivers on insurance.
Na you make on plan fifu la fear operator receipt na VAT only VAT COVID.
Yes.
VAT everything. So why the lie now? No phone na na nya duma video kana say fuba goma nya jisa na baba do.
Jo akpala kama wo na ye producer o ako amkoda ngojia ko nya
nya jisa baba do.
Anya gbanto budget o mia pon pri ha amayo ponya ko be fia na ba nyin va kuma ba politician no le ki.
Nya aleke
betting tax me be mo homo. Me better than Maracuculo, betting tax our home pa, milk a betting down that bet no draw Yanto Yankume, Odana Galama. Tanaba, you were betting tax or Mokunya politician upon Yana said them for Focovado.
Mama Gai Gloma Lebedi, and him Adam Puma Becker, the Mele Zukoya Mono. Upon your marking, Ihemaga, a Chitram Macarajiba, a Ganyado Glom, Peter Quanuanya Bear. The number budget here, Mama got a quiver a trauma go be a day. ele budget ashi tananya ba miakata mi de party nya heheda ba manye NDC manye MPP nanya ba miakata mi dzukwa kwa achomajima nke na fi NPP to yo kako dogbaju ya domfia ba yo mesena na gomo nwi yo kaglomo la izngbadodo kwe onya nwi anwe wo cho de budget ma na ba do ko glon ko nke no ma wo de ka na mi azo de ngogbe kle dzukoya
futu mi ngora ka pogbo fuga na mi akata nya ajia ba nya fe la ba na nya te pe janyi de mi ngro be party penya ayi ke budget e dogo nya ke magro ngro ba de ka nsang na possible afi mi fa ngolawe mawom na mi
yes
nya me magro nya ba na nya ba nu ye wo ko gbogbo mfia agata no nyo ba de o de garanyi for nya no vi o ka chi de la
akosombo dance village ayi ka jovai
otenwa kpero mji aso
eronkuji ba wo allocation na resettlement me ara upon Nkrumah he should come and tell me that
the then minister for works and housing
upon Nkrumah sat in front of Ablakwa that they need an extra 200 million Ghana cedis. After the project and now we will go to the site and see the level of the completion of that project.
Upon Nkrumah lema Dogofia Gboglomba they did not do their settings well. Upon Nkrumah lema nyamaglo oba yoma o yopa settings so ni
fifia fi o resetting wom na
o settings ata resetting wom
o resetting wom
makuma ko dashi na yafa no pola o tuma vi ona budget e ona echo ha ezema ha eya fina baduko miema gbagba sege echo yafa wona kata amayoka ko nyancho nyanya economy global nya konta ro rafu na ta no nwo yo malaka ka kama te tomato no mia global nyaike minority grow fi la be family o
assemblyman no allowance o
assemblyman no allowance
assemblyman no fa kokodi azo
ta nyare ka global iya gaika kona la se common fund
district assembly common fund
50 kono kono aka fifia no ko 80% okoko yire assembly ama okoko komia ko do gbo ekwe development yin mama galifio nshango assembly decentralization assembly na ko nshango nshango kefa dumavio miafo momanyo assembly na kpogbo makpoba nu yo kata nyanya batumavio na anya yin ke bakpoba
anya je achion
ma fitofia na mi 51.3 million Ghana cedis in your seed money in our women development bank
nyonge manyata
mianovio kenele ketu south ya labo no jijokon ala be 200 million Ghana cedis enye gaika wo allocate ya ba novio ka chiafo ajagbo agblan chomi achia anya jijonya ike wodon kumiaji adami budget am wi ka ga nko na mamaga akosombo dance village ajova iko la jidudu ko apa ngoli ka kafia fiamba juklola la opposition ga ka adangblechu amaya onchi afiva ko jukloji ago ha ko ale nunola eno na enya ya
da he a politics nyareke melemu NDC MPP mo na ngonyo na we onyo komie blogger ne ba no kpola majiba mi ana mo npapọ mi o hale budget nya ke na selema minority fa paji over blog ha o make nya nchonwu a o ba efe na nya ba yo kpo debt to GDP nya ba economy so peteme ya efe ke dukoya arodu kule gaika o nya gaika o kpona
gross domestic product
e ko so player NDC ya ga o brother ma ya 73% yo brother 61.0 be yo to nyowu kakra anya tefa enye be no kpola o otutu o pa fake ko labo ka kodore ngogbe ike jirudu bubu na bona kakege eyenye nya tefa be o woteje ba bere mi efa ham fifia ono a efa kele mi anwo otutu dore ngogbe eyenye nyama atagere kaji aro susu aglo kure o ha leke na po budget e amaro ba jidepo pro mo popo enlemebe enye ba fere kaya budget e nyagba odo a enwu akakare me health insurance ha gai ko labo
o allocate gani
gai den gogbe lip ami mi no vi o ka ma no mo shito yo ko kada ka vi no otutu ga dore ngogbe mi avi o fa nduru la suku ha o de garage gai den gogbe fia na vi re suku anye ba o na odu ndi ndoto azamato ko ya manage
mamaga
nya mo na free SHS ba nya re fi na me ba mo ti gbo nya re ka ba o jilawa o go na feed haga bo na hago kaka o ji source of funding
na ya ko
fia no ba free SHS a o te peli me ga poge no ba mi apo mo wa o te peli me ga poga ko
na nyiba mi taro ga fi achokpo mama gafi mi apono kola ona no gaganda ma anyamke ga jijodom na lenene pa health insurance anwa akweba a guy code a manya ga ko nya gbaja ko le health insurance amaka uga me obakhayi ochoga okpai vavieto nya achika panyo anye ba ye card ma choga ikoji fia oglogo achika mto achika nglogo no bana gapula tade budget ye bonwa mi agule dada to ebe echochomade egbo na ene Ghana juko.
Okay, all right, yo no pola wala kena ko budget e nkene se no fere le kaji ho hello
ya mari ko ni mai ma ya ja kaji mari ko bari ni madam budget e ba kuli me ka fu mu la ro nya ba maje bo da shi nya ma nko aje bo yu no ba da ma because bable ko plan ma va ye ma ya ba di tama over no position aga no ka kuma no koran kuma na mara ka aje bo yu ba pa ko ma ki ha maje bo no mo na mo no na na manyo aje ba mu zero na endi si to na chi tra ba le ka wo ne va ye na no ko i do ko ti abia na va da ngo bable la su bolo na na ka ma ni wo
bable yo va mi do ma vieux blama
ni bana yo gona na ma no ga da mara ka ma va ro won ko ka kumra mai ka ya ma ye fu ba go ma se mo e yo gnya ta ko wo chu bo bo ta ro ve ti to party mo to go ma bla me ta je bo o no yom pa da ma na ku nya ma ni mo jo na la da ma because na go be betting taxi mo ku po e ka ma yo ga yo ka chu mi la jina mo fi ko yi mo la je ba mi agbe na mo ri e be da ga ma vo na va go ma ba yo mo ka fi ba azan mo ji aro fi mo ji mi to ko ga da me apana mi
afo nyama ko sedem afo fo nyama ko ka ma fo no viere ma va hello
amaka no via gele kaji
na nyeba na ba yo manwo homo ka na moda beta o ko ga la ma de ka me ke ga ho
bia nya ba fika yimega khameka dudum le mi no vi beta duma fika yimol mi we ba nwe yo ko vivo yo ma implement yo afia ba ma domu yo gle ba vo dodo ma domu avo mi no vi bet dan fun ame yo ma majoro kra beta di tonya adane no du ha wo dane ma kanke wo jijin ba yo glo ne mi fia mama ga no via de le kaji
hello nko kwa frame yam cho
ya cho ko kwa bla nya ban kwa 24 hour economy
24 economy la Kenya bla
o bla todo benami
akpe kaka ijina
mere kude mebe mana du come to ni nyabede eda lebe ya wi nyabele kuku bete avazide MPP to ho ba really press conference yare kemelo si wa nu yet about really conference budget ko kele na mide enye ne prene be ko sama mi ne be to be de mi la fado men budget enye do kele ko na me de be menyo na yode iba to jamu de mi ko budget kele ko anti tori ne menyo na oni ba to jamu mi avio bi che wole mo le du kokoro si le suku mi avio de ta mo du amon le kokoro si le ji afena
akpe mi to gwe ne gbi bla to kata o atake ka jina mi budget ale kene pe pre minority fe gbeda shi ke over na ha akure budget anwo ha le kene pe nyata penye ma hello
good afternoon mama ga
afternoon maraku nko platform ya yamchu
ya maraku benekene nko chabuz maguja ko fara kaji
akwe miafo yijina
ya mama ga ma joma ipaji pata kure MPP to manyang ye nanya bo ma ta kran le betin yo more yo du ba kure ko na mi ba yo ma bidere ka kwonto mamo ni wanya ba yi gavanu ku gamo wa no je tera no yiro mi o mi ku mi ma mi fa no ko ta no je tera no yiro ri mi o mi o mi to shin wa de ami ra ku ku no bobo ni no ku ya shin ale mi o ge ko ko ge
ta ke ko ba jete
ale ngale karama ka ba ku mi dra ba katana don ti la ko ka do mi du ji ko katema
okay akpe edo gbe na gbo zuma to kata no for the get kajina hello yeah nko platform yam cho na la mo ti nko platform yam cho hello
ya madam to kanali
mi ho agbendono mreko nko platform yam cho
nkanye dan ko kutanga kado
mreko ko gbajina mvide
nkanye dan kutanga kado
repedo Maraku Ijina.
Oh, budget for the October budget year. And then it hello?
You might call some new.
Budget already. And I had the boss, so over down at the comment.
Oh, okay.
Alabama, the family, the party, this week, you for the call, Bobo, no matter how the garage. Ile never do which you talk on a Kubarana do the Julaha, Ogadilla Tokimoji. Takaya going to see a bit Mugata, I is Mugata Dora. I could do because you have to, yes, because you said about the Generation Party to get to Jeniabu.
I quit.
Some of the Mahama, Dinaha.
Agbaga vedo gwenahla fedo to kata vi bu nagara kajiwa lekena po budget ai ple enya ke gro minority le lekena po hello nko kwa fide me yamcho
Hello mama
mato
good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Ma ko yake spana mangucho
Nang pom trafika
kata vi
Awo, for la Kenya Katavi, Dokuya.
Me for the silo, Mania Quacachari.
Me for you, Ijina.
Pues, Novella Dodgy. Never budget of Machari. You should be Tory. And Yara came a low shoe. Now, Ganawa, no way, buddy. Down to Alaco on Lavamina to Covinio Droma. Ikwi menge la future engineer with ya chema la nya mada beta never be what never be more game go do no plano ya mora dam tanya me but dam na we ko chonchi da problem is go rete wonchi da o wa nya kan ga mo ko ja ko da se ye to ya kero mo ni ya ra kamala issue
okay.
Yeah, no, you said that I'm pumpo.
Ako bito ba nakita bito kata hobada makara maduna de adrieko.
Ora gam. No viele le kaji.
Hello.
Howe. Afo koju.
Afo koju nake. Nake ya howe.
Howe boko.
Akwe ijina mi.
La budget me puede como un guía de gana tipo me lleva me tu barato ma u avamian ba adunti na kwa wa bizini
akpa foko jo mi tu gona kwa to kata o ha tagare kaji na mia azo sedem amana ni hoga mi afia kwa akpa
o te mi la fie egbo mi papa ke pide for fifi la fie o te no va vango mas iba wa do pa sesele la mu aglo abele ko po na pe budget ye na abe tuma view ene
photo via maraba budget agbogbo be na Ghana du ko
ya ba du ko ku Ghana kura chitrem
agbogbo be ko be ale wo flamu sector by sector anya fie hoye yiga ga ihe anya fie oyina ga ihe anya fie oyina ga ihe anya fie oyina de anya ba awe be Ohana ya beta flachi mase yefugba sugbo ha.
Bagbona no vie le kajinami. Hello.
Good day.
Yeah, good day.
Nko nyenye Gladys Dogbeto mo yan cho peje.
Ape aunty le kenya peje ndo ya.
Boko, mi le boko ji.
Le kele ko budget ai.
Budget am po ele dodongu. Dogbeto mo yan cho peje.
Le mara kula mo na TV npo mo.
Peje ele boko nami. Budget ele dodongu nami.
Ape.
Ele dodongu fine.
Ape.
NPP toyo de mi menya le ko bo mi le duko ya mi. Na po ko anya ba la patonye. Duko ya mi no sese na mi.
Ala pa wa ya pa. Ka ma ngma vivia.
Maraku.
Agboba ngma vivi bo ngwa na ka ba la pa ga ifo apa e.
Ngma vivi tonye. Na de ma chonko no ba National People Party tonye.
National ka?
National Pickpocket Party.
National Pickpocket Party.
Party.
NPP.
Tade, no that's still Mahama nguna wa ife do. Eh yo ho lo fe nwo wo mde. Mahama ma de funao. Da no that's still nguna wa ife do budget ngbe odoa. Ife budget e mo na ndo ya. Yes sir. Ala pamelemu. No do asi glapo no po NDC to no wo fe do. Ape na mi mi awele doji.
Ape. Edo gbona pe je to pete. Hello.
Hello.
Mako nko kwa fina me yomcho.
Yo madon double kona me mara kun kwa nya Francis on foncho tema.
Akpe fo Francis jina mi.
Doko wa globe ba ma je gomo be Ghana to dako le Jimiye Vamovai. Amayo ko no ko du koda sinenya John Dramani Mahama playing this party ko du koda sina. Ta ade ba ko na unu gbo afi pototore le play ta NPP to wa o mi da shi on oli adoge kaka ko na unu wa ba globe 1 million press conferences in over target ta ka kwa ko na unu ko 1 million press conferences awo oge o ga wora kan o ga ra won do ku chi aho
da ahlam na
okay mahlam now
da na gbe ni
sisi la sia baba ke kanya gbara ma ka kama kala jibo wo ma wo bai ho ka ni ma fo so budget an nya budget ta so achi eda gbogbo Ghana ma na ko mi oko o ka chare budget ma so gbole gbegbe budget ya ma gbara ho ko nya fa assembly members so mu wana do do re kere mu aka budget ya wo do re assembly members so anya jijonya budget euro re mi no fi non vi o kole suku mu ga ga no fi fia par le ka fia shi hom ava amado a ta pla ti o pona jiun le jiun de ta ma be je version ne ta edebe mi for shi pe na ya fa new ya covid levy o de da anya fi jona nya ka base tax in levy oh nebe roga mama nya le village a ro ko panga ejebe avo o charge mu ho afuma rega tu ne bank akove ne mu ba mania o charge mu ho afuma kala khaso ku woke kayo kata ne fiun kona mi afofo John Dramani Mahama ba o haya magaji go ko hana ga na goja ida shi ohun no dole nya wele doji
akpe mi ko ne tomato kata mi da pe no bi bota gere kajina mi hello kuna ala mo na TV ko hello
okay hello
yeah
ato gbena mi ta tan la fima
mi ko gbe
ya nko nya sara chokeji
okay anti Sarah ijina mi
ma da pena mau budget ya o khliga ame o very never pe chaku chia sala ko fo gavaji de ma never de jiko bu nrewu ye da pena ma chama ma funye adoge ta endi to no da sinchi no de jidila no de susudi ama ufa manu fefe ikele ji obi aplugana ti ko ere ade ni to boye mare to de jiri no kule to mo ga de fune ko budget ya o khn ma da pani da ma chama fugu wala ma ka ka wi na le fefe nye be ayo ma de ko de share ifle amayike apumoji awo yi ha ameyo pepam dan do mi do ta frase no ni ko maula fo no bere no ko ti me fa o ko mau fofo pele lolo da wo to pli de diji kele sia na Ghana to mi apo ti je mo o ma ga hire mo do na ba je ma no do nfe no wo do na Ghana na apo ti jo mo ta pe na mo sia mo
akpega ka bi do gbena kaji to kata none of your family akwe
no viare le
hello hello
hello
mara pun ko pra fina me yamcho
ko nem so
efo ko ko jina mi vie
mo so mo ti ko ba to
eji
my doctor budget and then fine and that those no ajine mi lo atene million le doji
akpe me san ko ni o ma san ko pra fina me yamcho kaka hello
Hello, good day.
Good day.
Welcome here, Doro. You can hear this much after so con.
Okay. Okay. Ijina.
Economic enter. Budget your hurry. Hello, fine. I can hear you. Hello, hello.
Oh, me tata ga turu ma TV ya. Me ga ro to TV ya. All right, ma ko no vie mo fa ko mi atuka ko bo. No vie mo fa na gere ka jina. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, ko problem ya mcho.
Nangoye maso ati pocho sare tula.
Akwa fo me ko na le mo no TV.
Maraku yo. Maraku nyaadni ko mago nyeba nyaba nature ka apura yale nya pome nya trashenti ye ben ko jona ni la pona mi wato.
Me da kwe. Fo me da kwe kaka. Hello.
Hello, Mama ga madobe.
Ma ko gbe. Enyanko.
Hello, oyombe kaka kuru. Baru foto ye.
Kaka kuru.
Amada tenemi. Ade nukapo adala mo la lo alufi aito. Aniya me ba khere ni lo fa to wo genemi. O ki wa to mo vana mo. Mama ga nyabe adamademi ejile kike mo. No me la no wo se ma te wa ko. Ya me to ba ko ri wa no a. Take me ka to mo se ni en TikTok. No ko ri hawo. Ko ho ta ti ka o te wo. Omo ka o te wo. O me le ba yo ma mi. Na block mo popo ne. O we ma we. Ebo na no nya ma gbo. Atene mi ejijom. Tita agbe ma na bo no to akori fukumu. Na ka le rola mi.
Ka le rola mi.
Ma ta akori fukuru la.
Akpe kakra kolomida akpe ma ko no vi mamle na gere kaji ko mi to ka fogbo hello ka fogbo e fufu ma gbedo mi akure mu fi a choke hello. Hello.
Hello.
Nyanyanko.
Ukenya khove mayo chokata.
Akpe mere ku ijina.
Budget tenya ko fo kan gba ko kan budget tala ni.
Okay.
Hello. Ahora. Bobo.
Akpe mi da akpe mi ga no fiere ke hogoro ka ju mi do ta flache. Photo vi mo no nya global de. Masana na ike George Nam. Akpo na nye be finance minister va be ava aglo nya de kude dukoya ngu sometimes adoa elebo ko road sector. Miape monyawo miape hefunyawa mereka ko va gro na ikata garomo grabo de o ameya ese bo capture na o bo te pare aje ele o complete le
fika o
aha plan ka tracker nma o zunya ta fifi ogogro be nanya make kola masanya ojiko nu yi ke jojo mo lo do pa moko
na va sa ta papa ma na va gble
enya ya de
mama ga enya strategy mi ado ko yeme ala ba no le na ma ko afia nkpe ko ba amasha me ke no dara adoran ko e ko ite me blona sigada ba ala ba monitoring and evaluation team arana no ni ko na o reporter na mo anya accurate report na ko menye ba na ba mi fix a tracker bla
to one this one factory
exactly don't go nka tracker app afio ba
performance tracker da ha
performance tracker bla mi ada na gere tracker ma mama ga ta anya o ko fi fie anya munwere ma de fie akan don to achacham agenda wanu katanji kayo la complete
yes
kayo lab ma complete kayo fi wo aluminium mirror fixing fi o lu verso mi ma
yin to pon
fi asusu wonu abo agboja ogara mu gan to mo
anu chachama mo
ji nyepo tore santa o katan makwa yin to zo fi ngba mo eji ya la vie na mu to afia ngba bata mo he zo jita la imo to na weji zo chu e for every maka mama ga on to po for secondary school mo to ni personal hygiene fanya glon dasta na no gagan su ko koma anu kumarom na review balona no dust poma no consider review for health ala be health center ha ko mala moto tututu woko donove woko chicken e ngba ka emergency wo ko na no ko hu abu vai ato fufura anwianchi just imagine how ta ala be ono aba agboja ha na to center so kata villages so hintanyo afio kana highway totoga wa location ka fio anya feeder road lebe department of feeder roads na akpo ma iha wonya like supervision hamukata wagi mama ga afuma rashiko na apre na onwe makaji na nya ba do mafia ko ba former finance minister na Dogo Richavie o security maganu ngo dumo yo fogala gogo Ofo gaba via.
Manya fofo crowd la. Maganchi pogo la.
Ofo gala go. Amadi ever I was a victim of this betting tax. So him saying that he have not collected any money from betting tax baffle my mind. But I leave it in the hands of God. They can hide behind the Bible and Quran to do the evil, but they cannot go to any shrine and go free.
No go po. Dr. Mamadu ba mi quote na Bible ko.
Kenoforia ata ye blogger Psalm 105. John 3:16. We la my blogger.
Health minister of Anya Kelly, tourism minister Anya Kelly. Me even Canada Blue Kata to my view hospital. I'm going to do your wedding. You saw any bagly. Oh, global, you over my own hospital. I can't show
Mama ga mmede eleta fa pepepe akwiba na olene ma wo minister ekele ministry ma ai ganye nyi no ba ye ha ya wodo ala ba gbama nya gbama ka ohifa hia ba ha na va glunwi kana wo na ma do mo nka blogi na gbona le parliament ala ba fifia maganya ha ho mu nya mara kana va no nyiko attach health attach nyi road attach kayu wo ha wonto agbona to ogbo ye we ba minta kan don to fia chacha nyi choi mo va do the Bokoro le western region to ama hospital adela fma kenanya Bokoro municipal hospital 2 days to election 2024 kenanya 5th December ye duplola na nado dan ko fado duplola kokwa ele tuji gwen va hu koji ma ka oregba famie se be koji ado nsiam letafa kaka minta kan do be dangi cho koji ama do mu ala ba donwo mu dada muta aba yo hia na Ghana ga 140 million Ghana cedis afi yo cho a complete ko je afi ahwina magbeto kwazaza ta anyo na nye ba oji alafia ko ba mashiama agbona account ga for ngi kaji imlo ministry a makaraji ba ministers o kata wano nyinyi dada jikpi o kaji ole ko anyo
yes fina fa dukola ji afie ga shekema mie nkula gada budget amuchi mi economic study hagava kaji wo agbama na mi ya bia mokpopo rele mokpopo de le la bo ka gawo lolo fike mi ga okpo ga la bo yo mo ga doga fu IMF amaku no no ga sena wu ko ka pa so o kasle elevio de fike mi ga kpo ga la get fan klo mi o kata ya lan kro mu populi ya ta ya fa nkpolo mi no mogbo
Mieda kwa nami ebe 24 television enye ya nele budget ke wo akhlana mi fia ifa nu majujuru ikwenye ya wo miele voma tore afia fifia ko jego tamie choga cho agba huda shina kosire kata mi ga no kom na mi deka haya ro kumie mli nogo mi gona nyi no gede sectors unchi akpobe nuka utututu egedema mi agba okata na mi madha pa bejigeda mi ona de kakle mi akpa chike home ye ejrenye ple mama ganu nyopodo ofa kapojesio mieje yoyocho ndima kega kama ga koge adare boy kenenya bana fugu adoju ajime iko na choi tafari kwa jagbana awode kakle chike home le kapojesi kayoge magbona fieji elabe nwiya anyenwi ke ajeo asrode po vie opere go fisha fika na ahia be na awode kakle dopa yake hwana honene fe fugu ya acho Ivai wo ope agbodo foka na chike home lejeshi kenenye 0246 740 183 0246 740 183 na foga sheke me godogo la fi na bodukoji mada kwa na mama ganu nyo kwa Emmanuel Dovia Gamali mada kwa na kule nyamodang dola okata Sadiq Wadrago Emmanuel set Augustine kule Prosper kule novia okata miawe wodo vo mima unu meji gele fi ni ga sheke ka mayo kanya uncho gadodo munwi da meje dodo waga kleo wadenu de ka evomanami mima jola miagbo nkeka na jeji na musiama.